This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Applied Botanics. Applied Botanics offers a great line of CBD oils, including a line for pets. Now, I've been using their products for the last 2 months. I really wanted to test it out before I started promoting it to listeners of this podcast, and I have to say, I experienced some great benefits. They have 5 different products, which include comfort, focus, recovery, tranquility, and vitality. The 3 that I utilized the most were comfort, focus, and tranquility. Comfort really provided me with stress and anxiety relief. I just started a new job 2 months ago, so between that and the fact that we're still living in a pandemic, comfort really slowed things down for me, and at the end of the day, kept that anxiety and stress at bay. Their focus line also helps me during podcasts. It helps me to really focus on what my guests are saying, which enables me to ask the important questions and really pull back the layers of who they are. And finally, and possibly my favorite that I felt great benefits from, is tranquility. I take it 30 minutes or so before bed, and it really helps deliver me into that deeper sleep faster than I would without it. I wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Now, oftentimes people are skeptical of CBD oil, especially when it comes to the price. But whether you're curious about CBD or have used CBD products before, you will find that Applied Botanics CBD is nearly half the cost of other brands. Their thoughts are that using CBD should not require a payment plan. On top of that, listeners of this podcast can get an additional 30% off their first purchase using the code word Popko Project at checkout. So head over to appliedbotanics.com where you can learn more about all their products. And if you decide to make a purchase, use code word Popko Project for 30% off. Applied Botanics. Live healthy and happy. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Keller's Garden Center, Lawn Care, and Landscaping Services. Working hard so you don't have to. They will take care of mowing, edging, pruning, trimming, shrubs, mulching, planting, and landscaping. Call them today for affordable and free estimates, weekly, bi-weekly, and monthly weeding and cutting services. And new this year is the Keller's Garden Center. They just moved to a new location across the street from their old location, and the Garden Center will offer landscape design and installation, mulch, rock, plants, trees, and more. They are located on 7 Kern Street in Exeter, PA. Call them today at 570-299-7240. Again, working hard so you don't have to. My guest today may be the most iconic member in Weekender history. For those of you who don't know, the Weekender back in the day was the Bible when it came to arts and entertainment in Northeastern Pennsylvania. From part-time to full-time sales rep to sales manager and marketing manager to general manager, we take a walk through it all. She was a mentor to all of us and definitely the manager we needed as we entered the workforce out of college. It was great hearing her reflect on her career at the Weekender and also where she is today. Welcome to the show, the ever so gracefully aging Rachel Pugh Blanchard. And we're live. I think we're live. It says recording, so we better be live.
We're live, baby.
You know, I was late tonight because I figured I'd give you a buffer because you're never on time for anything. And it turns out for the first time in your life,
I was ready.
Your first time, I caught that. Holy shit. I'm like, you know what?
You're like Ralph Macchio. You're like Daniel.
This is what, you know what? You and I have this love for Cobra Kai. This is like, it was like meant to be. This is really weird.
We're going to get into Cobra Kai. I was thinking about that actually before this. We're going to get into it.
Well, it's funny. I thought about you multiple times today. 1, because we were doing this. 2, I went to the dentist, and we'll explain why that makes sense in a little bit. Mm-hmm. And 3, I was outside today, and the wind was blowing, right? And I had the longest hair that I've had probably in my entire life. You can't really tell right now because it's kind of, you know,
brushed back,
dad-esque, you know, pulled back a bit, right? But my hair was blowing a little bit, and there was one little strand flying by itself. The whitest hair I've ever seen in my head.
Yeah.
So I plucked it out, and I said,
don't do
Rachel.
Don't do
this reminds me of Rachel.
No, you're such a jerk. Don't pluck them; they come back faster.
I'm ready for it. I'm embracing the.
It's so different, and I hate it, but it is a double standard. But it is what it is. But although silver hair is like super cool for girls right now, and I've talked to my hairstylist about doing it, but she's like, it's a hard process. But I'm like, maybe I'll just let it go and then have her fix it up because it's getting harder and harder to keep up with Johnny.
Yeah, I mean,
But you know what? I was just listening recently to this motivational speaker through work, and he was talking about how he had his leg amputated when he was a child. He had cancer. And so he's lived, the majority of his life now without his leg. And he said recently he's been balding. And he said, it's ridiculous that I am like more concerned about that. I feel like people are staring at that more than my leg. And he said, but here's how to change your perspective on it. Like, you should be so lucky, right? To get to the point where you're losing your hair and you're getting grays and stuff. Like, not everybody gets that chance because he's gone through this crisis and he made it out on the other side. So he's like, you need to embrace the gray hairs. You need to embrace balding because it means like you get to live your life, where other people might not get that chance. So I was like, that was a good, like, I don't know, flip of the script for me.
Yeah. Well, way to go deep in the first 5 minutes.
I am. I'm a very complex person.
Yeah. Well, Rachel, you look great. I don't know what everyone's talking about. You don't look a day over 50.
I appreciate it, John. Only you can get away with it. No, that's not true. Other people can get away with it. But like, I love our texts, our like miserable texts to one another, and just putting each other down and just feeling fine with it.
I mean, we can't change it, right? I mean, that's what it is.
It's a loving relationship.
Well, thanks for doing this as part of the Weekender files that I've been doing. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks.
I was trying to save you for last. I was like, you know what? Rachel was like, could be the most iconic figure of the Weekender.
Oh God, I hope all two viewers feel the same.
Well, they all probably think it's me. But anyways.
One will watch for you. One will watch for me. Our fanboys.
My 5 listeners will be tuning in. But no, seriously, in all seriousness, you were definitely an iconic figure of the Weekender. I think you took it to its, I want to say peak, but that's not fair to those of before us.
No,
different, and it's like comparing Michael Jordan and LeBron James. It's a different world, different scenarios.
Yeah. So
it's not fair to say that, but end of the day, you're an iconic figure, and you will still, I think, at the end of the day, go down as, this figure of the Weekender and part of its identity.
If that's my legacy, I'm good with it.
Yeah, I hope it's not for me. But Johnny Weekender can't die. I mean, it's weird. He won't die.
It's a big part of your history and a big part of like a time of growth, right? I mean, we both grew up at the paper. So, there were some awesome times or some things I'm like, all right, I wouldn't do that now in my professional career, but, live and learn. And we got away with it and we had fun and made money and, did well. And you know what? A lot of people can't say that. So I valued my time there. I appreciate growing up at the newspaper.
Yeah, it definitely spoiled me. I don't think I could have like a real job, so to speak. I came close, I guess, a couple years ago, but no, I've been pretty lucky. Maybe a few years ago.
Plus, too, do you ever like we have some crazy stories, and I sometimes don't realize how crazy they are until I start talking to like colleagues, and they're like. And I was like, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't be sharing that with you. And I'm like, well, go, did you ever like get crazy in your 20s? They're like, no, not like that. So I'm like, I try to recognize my audience a little bit better now these days.
Yeah. Well, a lot of those good times stemmed from alcohol. So I hope, as a part of this podcast and the Weekender Files.
Cheers, buddy.
All right, good.
I
was like, oh, man, it's late. It's 8:00. We're all getting older. We all have like, jobs in the morning. It's hard to drink. It's a Wednesday, so it's like I don't want to ask too much. You're just hit the 50-year mark.
Such a jerk.
I don't want to like push you too hard.
I know I'm supposed to be living more responsibility. They're more responsible at this age and have more responsibilities. But yeah, I don't have kids, so I don't really have to worry about that. So
yeah, I have a 3-year-old, as you know, and he gets up at the same time, regardless of how late I stay up.
Yeah.
How hungover I might be, he still wakes up at 7 o'clock every day.
And if there's an emergency or something, you have to like manage that. Although I do have old cats. So I always think about that. I'm like, I want to be of like right mind that God forbid something happens, I have to go to an emergency vet. I do think of that.
Yeah. You don't let me down with the cats. You're definitely, living up to the old cat lady.
My whole life though, since I've been a baby, like since I've been little.
Yeah, but I think you're a little more excessive now. I mean, not only do you have them, but you have no shame in sharing them, which is fine. I'm not judging you one bit. But when you post,
you are because you're bringing it up.
When you post some pictures that you have, and like there's like 8 cats on your bed.
6.
I'm like,
I'm 6.
6. I'm sorry.
I'm 6. Sorry. But like growing up, like I remember being little and having like 12 at a time. Like my dad, when his whole upbringing, he had cats. My mom had cat. Like they always had cats. So like I don't remember not having them. So when people say I'm a crazy cat lady, I'm like, yeah, since like birth. Now I'm just old and I have cats, but.
Are those cats on your shirt?
Oh, they are. They're tigers.
Oh my God. I thought
tigers. I didn't do that on purpose.
Wow. You know what? I can't really see them that well, but I'm like, I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say they're cats.
It's a new shirt. It's my first time wearing it.
Sure.
I feel flattered. Put lipstick on, did my hair, sprayed my roots.
Yeah, this has become like a night out for the Weekender crew who have done this for me. I remember Katie was saying, she got like, we were doing it like 8:30 and, it was late. Obviously it's a weeknight. And, yeah, I mean, it's like, we're getting ready to go out, but we're staying in.
I know. It's fun. It's like, I'm like having flashbacks.
But we joked and said, we weren't joking. We were, this is real. We were saying how, back in the day, it would be 10 o'clock and we would like be getting ready to legit go out.
Yeah. All like at least Wednesday through Saturday, sometimes throwing in a Tuesday as well. But like, I definitely never sat home on a Thursday, Friday. A lot of times there were promotions Wednesday nights, always went somewhere Saturday. Yeah, I don't remember staying home.
And you were the worst. I remember being in bed one night. I was trying to be a mature 26-year-old man, saying, I'm not going to go out tonight, going to bed early, work in the morning. I get a call. I think it was a call. I don't know if it was even a text. Maybe a text. I can't remember that part. But it was Rachel Pugh. Hey, we're meeting X, Y, and Z out.
Yep.
You're in. And I'm like, I'm in bed.
But you always got dressed and came out.
I did.
I mean, it's life, but you don't want to miss out. It was fun.
Hey, you know what? I don't regret it. I'm not mad at you for it. It just, it's part of the story.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, I've always liked to have a good time. And I'm like, I love when other people are having a good time. I get excited, it makes me happy. So I just have a lot of those moments.
Yeah. Yeah. They've somewhat dwindled over the past few years.
Yeah.
Getting old and tired.
You can't, there's something to be said too, like when you're like out every single night and acting wild and acting stupid in your 20s and then doing it in your late 30s and your 40s. Like you're cool in your 20s and you're like a party person. Then in your 40s, you're like, now you're just like, desperate or something. I don't know. Like it's weird. It's just weird, right? How
dare you judge people? Age is just a number.
I'm not saying you can't go out. I'm just saying to go out every night and, and act stupid like all the time. It's a different perspective. That 25 and 26 versus like 46. So.
Yeah. So let's travel back in time, like way, 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 way back in time. Like this is like 30 years ago. Your start at the Weekender. No, I'm kidding. You're only what, 43?
I'm 43, yeah.
43. I joke. The whole thing with Rachel and I just make fun of her for being older. You're only 5 years older than me, so.
Yeah, I know.
It's just what I do.
For my 40th, everyone's wishing me happy birthday on Facebook, and you look great, you look good. John Popko wrote, "Ew."
Did I?
Yeah, I remember you wrote on my Facebook, "EW." Period.
That's actually hilarious.
It was awesome. Yeah,
I'm pretty proud of myself for that.
Literally laughed out loud. I appreciated it.
I'm pretty proud of myself for that. Yeah. Maybe I'm a funny guy. But no, let's go back. I mean, I don't even know how you started at the Weekender, and I feel like I should. I think you were, an intern like I was, and all that kind of stuff. But like,
it wasn't.
Take us back to how the career of Rachel Pugh started.
Sure. So I graduated from Penn State, and I had a degree in film and video, and then I realized in 2000. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like, I love film, but like I was going to move to New York. I had an apartment in the Bronx and everything, and then didn't move there. And then I was like, I don't really want to go to LA. And like I was doing some like studio cam operator like work for WVIA. I worked for a freelancer, and I was just like doing odd stuff, and I couldn't figure it out. And my dad was giving me like guidance. And finally, my mom was like, "You're going to a job fair at the Armory." And I was like, oh, God, and to walk around like all dressed up, passing on a resume, it just wasn't my thing. She said, "You're doing it." So I did it. And I passed it out to Kathy Pleshy. She was working the booth at the Armory. And she was like, "Oh, actually, we have some like part-time work available, like we should be." So I'm like, all right. So she called me, and
at the Times Leader. She was okay. So Kathy was working at booth at the Armory for the Times Leader.
But she was representing the Weekender too.
Okay.
She was representing like all the properties. So I met with her in the Times Leader lunchroom on North Main Street, that back room. Mm-hmm. And she said, "We're looking for a part-time marketing associate, and it would be marketing for the Times Leader and the Weekender." And like, I really didn't even know what marketing was. I'm like, what does that entail? She said, "You go to promotions, you go to like fundraisers." And I was like, that's cool. Like, I like to go out and do things, right? But at the time too, I was like, I wasn't into bands. I was only into like DJs and clubs. And it was like, I was just so like, I don't know, like hyper focused on that. It was weird. So I was like, all right, like what kind of promotions? And she explained them. And I'm like, oh God, I don't know. So I left, and then she called me and offered me a position. And then I was like, oh, let me think about it. And then she called me and offered like $1 more an hour. So I think it was like $9 an hour. And I was like, all right, I'll take it. So I took the job and was working. I worked there and at Victoria's Secret, which, can you picture me at Victoria's Secret?
Oh, this is great news. This is awesome.
And there's no offense to anyone who's worked at Victoria's Secret, but like, it's completely opposite of everything that I am. Like, I'm not measuring people for their bra sizes. I can't be overly like, when people are coming in, it just wasn't my thing. But I did it just to make money, because I'm like, I moved back home. I'm living with my parents. I wanted to get my own apartment. So I did. I got my own apartment and everything. And but I was doing work for the Weekender and Times Leader. So I was switching from there, like, all right, go, this band's playing somewhere, go throw out Weekender t-shirts. I'm like, all right. So I would do that. And then I was like, all right, Sesame Street Live is at the FM Kirby Center. Like, go there and present the like Times Leader sponsored or whatever. So I'd be like on stage talking about the Times Leader. It was just like this bizarre, I don't know. But it was like such a great experience, just because you had to keep like switching between both, which is interesting because at the end of my career, I was doing Times Leader and Weekender as well. So it came around full circle. But yeah, I just kept doing that. So I was doing like parades and stuff for the Times Leader. And then I'd jump and help at the, promotions of the Weekender. But I noticed that some of the asks at the Weekender and some of the people, they were like forceful about throwing t-shirts out and being like, I didn't go to like one of them because he called last minute, and I got called like the C word. And I was like, I've never been called that in my life. Like, it was crazy. It was such a crazy dynamic.
By an employee?
No. It was a band manager.
Oh, okay.
Cover band or whatever.
I got you.
Yeah, no one from the Times Leader. So, but it was, now I know that sounds horrible, but it was good for me because it thickened my skin and it gave me like exposure to like, this is the world, And So then I just did that for a while, and then I left for a little bit. I thought I was going to go work for this company. I thought they did like music videos. It didn't work out. Called Kathy Pileshi back, and I was like, can I come back? And she's like, yeah. So then they offered me a full-time job, but, and then I went right into sales. Actually, I got asked to do a sales position. There was an opening at the Weekender, so I moved right into sales, and then that's how I just kept building my career. So at the time, I worked for Kathy, and then I worked for Christy Cerruti, who at the time was Christy Greer, and then Christy gave me a lot of opportunities. She was like, "All right, you're in sales, but I also want you to do marketing and like help out with marketing." And she gave me my own column, so I wrote my own fashion column. So I was just getting like a lot of exposure in different ways. And I realized that about myself, like that's the kind of job that I need. Like I love doing a little bit of everything. Like I don't want to clock in and clock out every day doing the same thing. So that's what I did. And then I was like team leader and senior account executive, sales and marketing manager, and then general manager. So I just kept climbing my way up.
And when did you start as a sales rep? What year was that?
I don't know. It was like early 2000s, because when I was at the Times Leader, I worked with Stephen Pileshi, who's no longer with us. And he was showing me the ropes of marketing, and he was a great mentor. And then I worked for Laura Walensky, was my boss at the Weekender. So I want to say it's like 2003, maybe right around there. 2004. I don't know.
Well, I was an intern in 2004. And I feel like you started.
I was a sales rep then.
Yeah, right. You were. And I'm trying to piece together like the timeline of when you started.
Maybe 2002 or 2003. I don't know. It's a long time ago. But yeah, then you were an intern. And so that's kind of how it just progressed. And I had a bunch of different managers and mentorships. And I worked for Susan Kalu, who I loved and still love. And then I got, we can get into that, and then we worked for Rich Connor, and then I actually got in trouble for a cover, and then I had to report to Dee, I think her name was. Do you remember Dee? She was like a VP of sales for a short period of time.
Dee.
Blonde hair. You were definitely there. You were definitely.
Was she like Southern?
Yeah.
Chance? Yeah.
Because Rich wanted me, and he's like, all right, you need to like report to somebody else, because it was the G10 anniversary cover.
Oh, with Paige?
Yeah.
R.I.P.
Yep.
It's funny. Yeah, she wasn't there long, this D character.
No.
I vaguely, I don't, like, if
I
you
didn't
asked me
remember her long. Yeah.
to pick
She
her
was
out of the
after
lineup.
Susan. Susan left, and then it was
Right.
D. And then I don't remember after D.
It's probably Kim, right?
But I didn't report to Kim. I don't know. I think I reported to Rich. Oh, and then Jim McDonald came. I reported to Jim for a little while. He was like consulting, sort of. He was the one who made me general manager.
Oh, okay. And it kind of happened quick for you too, because if you're saying that you started as a sales rep in like 2003 or even 2002, like I believe you were named GM in 2006.
Yeah, I think so.
So you got fast tracked. Like you were, but I feel like how that happened was too, like a lot of changes came. I remember in 2005, Christy, who was the editor, was she the GM too?
She was a GM.
Yeah, she was a GM. I should know that. I just interviewed her for this, right? She and Joe Student, who was the editor, they left. So in 2005, I think that's when you kind of became like
sales and marketing manager.
Then we had Alan Stout as the editor.
Yep.
And then a year later you were running the show.
Jim came on board, and I was just like, I was working with him a lot, and I was coming up with just a lot of ideas for the paper and just different projects. And then he named me GM. So I owe it to Jim.
Yeah. And I owe it to you for leaving.
Wait, I remember when you I want to talk about your journey too, because I remember all these conversations, and I remember you saying like, I want your job someday. And I was like, fair enough. Like, let's groom you to do that, because I knew I wasn't going to stay at the Weekender forever. I mean, I loved it, but like, I wasn't going to go and throw these promotions and be at bars every night for the rest of my life. Like
at 50 years old.
Yeah, exactly. Hanging inner banners, throwing t-shirts out from the stage.
Yeah.
Like, it was awesome. But
well, I mean, as a GM, you could have still done that and kind of delegated to other employees, like the younger audience, to do those things. But that's not your personality. So
it's not the same. It's like people want, like, when you're representing the weekender, like, you need to represent the weekender. You need to be a part of it. Like, you can't be a corporate cog sitting in your office. Like, they want you to be, like, I just remember just talking to my dad just from where he worked, and he was like, when, like, you want to market yourself, that, and it's not about ego. It's just about, like, working so hard, doing what you're doing, that when people think of that company, they think of your name. He's like, that's the point you want to get to. So I remember I took that seriously, and I worked hard for that, because I wanted the community to know that, like, I'm in this because I'm supporting the community. Like, I love this area. It has a lot of great things to offer. People put it down all the time. Yeah, there's quirky things about it, but I've done a lot of traveling. There's quirky things about every area in the country. So
yeah. No, and you're right. And no one gave me, that's great advice from your father. And no one gave me that advice, but I kind of did the same thing. I just, it wasn't, and people hated me. People thought I was this, like, arrogant, stuck up, thought I was bigger than I was, just because, like, people knew who I was. Yeah. But it was just like, I remember, just being at every event. Like, I was out every single night doing something, whether it was, for the weekender, or just, talking to business owners or whatever it was. Yeah. It was just like, it wasn't 9 to 5 by any means, which was a blessing for me, because I started at the weekender when I was 22. Mm-hmm. And I had come from working, right out of college, and also working at a little place called Bennigan's as a waiter. So I was still living this, like, late night, the scene, so to speak. So I was not in a position to transition to a 9 to 5 job by any means. Yeah. And I love the weekender for that, because, like, I was technically an hourly employee, but, like, I was required 40 hours a week. So it was weird.
Yeah.
But I wasn't allowed overtime. So, like, it was nice, because if I was out late on a Wednesday doing a night out, I can come in late on Thursday.
Totally flexible. Yeah.
It was awesome.
That's what I liked about it too. Is I also started, we have very, very similar paths with the paper, because I started when I was 22. I just graduated college. I was home for the summer, kind of doing odd jobs. And I started in October, and I was just like, this is great. Like, this is such a, and I was young and naive, and, like, I was like, I'm not going to do this forever, but this is good for now. Like, this will be good. And then the longer I stayed, I was like, this is a pretty cool gig. Like, I like doing this, and once you started getting your feet wet, and then you were allowed to, like, do so many different things. Like, I know a lot of people who, right out of college, they might make a ton of money and they started at a corporation, but, like, they're doing the same thing every single day. Like, we were exposed to a lot, good or bad, but we were exposed to a lot. And it gave us, for me, like, and I think I can say the same for you, like, we have so many stories. Like, we have great stories. Like, when we're 80, we can look back and be like, that was a good time. Like, that was a really fun time. Where, I don't want to not have stories. So, and I just think that the paper just naturally lended itself to that. We got to meet a lot of cool people. We went to great concerts. You and me, Mike G, went to see Jewel, remember? And do you remember it was Jewel? We got free tickets to see Jewel.
At Montage?
And Matchbox 20.
With Rob. Yeah, Rob.
And the three of us were just sitting there, and I was like, this is boring. You guys want to leave? You're like, yeah, let's leave. But, like, we got free tickets all the time. And, like, you didn't think of it, but I'm like, looking back, I was like, that was a really cool thing. Like, we could have got any event.
Yeah. It was, for me, it was different in that, like, when I was an intern, I remember saying to myself, one day I want to be the GM.
Yeah.
And for me to say that it was more of one of those, like, things you say when you're 21, I'm going to do this.
Me when I was GM.
Yeah. I was waiting for you to, like, the fuck out, like,
steps.
Come on. I'm ready to walk over you. Let's go. You need a job. I found you a job, Rachel. Go apply.
I left at the right time. I left when I was ready to try something new. But,
well, I mean, that was a weird time.
Yeah.
In that, like, I mean, as a newspaper, Entertainment Weekly, like, it itself was on its way out, just because of how society consumed media, and you had Facebook and Instagram. Maybe not Instagram.
On Instagram. No, you had like YouTube, Facebook. MySpace was phasing out.
Instagram was around, but like not as prevalent as it is now.
Yeah. Well, then that's the thing. Like I knew enough that I was like, the only way this is going to survive is if we go digital. Like we need to go digital. We need to invest in digital. And, there was a lot of investments made in the Times Leader digital. And it just like, it wasn't happening for the Weekender. And I just thought, I only knew newsprint, so I was there 12 years. So I was like, it's all that I knew. And I got nervous about that. I was like, oh my God, like in one way, like my resume showed loyalty, definitely showed loyalty because it was my only job. But right. I was like, I just didn't feel diverse enough. And I was like, I think I need to like, spread my wings a little bit and just learn some new things.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the whole digital things. I actually brought that up with Jim McDonald and he kind of scolded me a little bit. Saying like, it's on us as individuals to kind of push it in the direction it needs to go. And I think he's right, but also you need a support system. They're telling you like, go do this. And because like you said, they said, go do this. And they're like, we just go figure it out, do it. Like, we're not going to give you any kind of like support. And I'll bring up the fact that, we had Mike Lello, who was very, music intensive. And he started, I think he had Fixture, and then we did the Weekender sessions after that.
Yeah, he was innovative.
And the Weekender sessions was a completely, digital component of what we were trying to do. And we did it on, I think, a $0 budget. We kind of asked for help. Yeah. Yep. And it's just like, it's unfortunate because I look back on those times and I really feel like those things that we were doing, especially for Northeastern Pennsylvania, was ahead of its time. Like,
it was very progressive. Yeah. Mike had really innovative ideas. And that's what I mean. Like, I think with a little bit of investment, to back it up, like think of the things that could have happened. So I think, and again, but what a great start, right? So you're learning everything on a shoestring budget. Everything is just like guerrilla marketing, right? Like there's no budget. So like now I work in marketing and there's this giant budget and I'm like nervous to spend anything because I'm so used to being able to like do things without having to like break the bank.
Do you need t-shirts by chance?
Maybe. We'll talk.
ABC. No, it's unfortunate because even you look back on the party favors that you were kind of the lead on, and then Mike and Nikki had the Weekly Dose, which kind of talked about the editorial content of the Weekender, but a digital form, and no one was doing that then.
No one did that. Yeah, and I don't think. Like when I say we needed to go digital, I didn't think that print needed to go away. I just think we needed digital support. Like, I just feel like you have to go where your audience is going. So you have to make your audience is going, like their eyes are going to so many different places. That's where you need to be, right. So it's, even like, my current job, you're talking about like, we sell products. So it's like, well, what's the best, like, look at all the best companies who sell products. And like, once customers follow that, it becomes like this, like the standard of care, right? It's like, well, this is the way people are doing it. So like you have to adjust because if not, they come to your company and you're like, oh, this is hard. This is awkward, So I just thought the same for the Weekender. I'm like, you need to be able to just kind of like Google the Weekender and like stuff would appear. And, there was, because you're always going to have different audiences and now, especially now more than ever, you have to appeal to all of them.
It's a nightmare. And real quick, I want to, just since we're kind of jumping around here, I want to at least let people know what you're doing now currently. I know you work for Benco Dental, which is a like dentistry product distributor.
Yeah, we're a full dental distributor. So we sell everything from toothbrushes to, equipment to building a design for your dental office, all of it.
Right. That's why I thought of you when I was at the dentist today. And I just want people to know that. So when you start talking about what you do today and you don't mention the name, people know. But yeah, it's today, like, social media is obviously like a full-time job for people. And it's like, I don't want to like do Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok. And cause I am old. I don't belong on TikTok. I'm not funny for TikTok. There's a lot of creative people out there. I just don't have that in me. I'm like, I also think I watch these videos. I'm like, that must have taken a long time.
I know. We're organic people, John. I think when funny moments happen, it happens organically. But to script out these hilarious videos, I say it all the time too. I'm like, these people, like, they're skilled at it. It's a true craft, and they're doing it to get different, more and more followers. Like,
yeah.
So that's a whole other skill.
Yeah, but back to the Weekender. I mean, yeah, you're right. You needed to be everywhere, and especially as we advanced, and we were always, NEPA at least was always 10 years behind.
Yeah.
But I thought we did a lot of great things as far as our capabilities were concerned, and the staff we had, and
yeah. Well, I think at the Weekender too, like, we would try to find out things. Like, I mean, I went to some conferences and stuff while I was there. I went with Christy to some conferences, and like, you're always trying to find out, like, not just what other newspapers were doing in other markets, but like just what the world was doing, like cool events and things like that. And we're like, all right, well, let's try to mimic that in Northeastern Pennsylvania, even if it's on a smaller scale. It's just something that's relevant and it's fresh, and something that, maybe it just hasn't happened in Wilkes-Barre before. And so we would do those type of events just to try them. And like, the fun part about it is, like, if it failed, we're like, all right, well, whatever, we just won't do that again, because it's not like we spent money on it. So there was no loss. So it was just us trying things out.
Yeah. I mean, what a great place to learn, though.
I know.
I mean, I'm thankful every day for my time at the Weekender. And I always said that my next tattoo would have been a Weekender logo.
I remember talking about this with you. Like, should we get little red W's? Should we do it?
And I'll tell you what, even if I never got one, but it's one of those things that even if I did, it wouldn't be one of those tattoos that I was embarrassed about.
No, me either. I love
that. I would regret it or whatever it might be. Just because
it didn't feel like work. I mean, it was work. We worked hard, but like, it was just part of your DNA, right? It was just like, this is who I am. This is what I do. And every time we went out, you represented that company. And it was just, it was just part of like our culture. I mean, I know that sounds super cheesy and probably hard to understand if you haven't been through it, but it was just fun to be a part of. And I never felt like I was like, oh, clock in today and like put in 8 hours. You would just be there until 10 o'clock at night, and even if your work was done, just screwing around.
Yeah. It's definitely a young man's game, and I shouldn't say young man because it's not politically correct anymore. A young person's game. Yeah.
And I don't know. I have so many just funny moments within the office.
So share some of those. I mean, I know my favorites. I think Damien and I talked about my most favorite one, but I mean,
there's a few. Like, there's so I don't know who did it, but somebody, like, remember I had that office. So Alan had like the big office with the windows when he was editor, and I had the closet.
Yes.
Remember that little closet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody, because I freaking hate Band-Aids. And I walked in one day and there were Band-Aids all over my office, like on my computer. Like, I couldn't touch anything without touching Band-Aids and stuff. And I was freaking out because it was disgusting. It was disgusting. I remember that as a moment. I remember, and I know you mentioned it before in a podcast, but that stupid blue football that you and Damien would throw around, and I yelled at you for, and I was like, I'm telling you, like, if I catch it, like, I'm cutting it into pieces. You're like, oh, no. And you guys threw it on purpose into my office while I was sitting there. So I got up and I knew you were doing it. I could hear you guys right outside my door. So I went and grabbed the football, and was it you or Damien jumped on top of me, which like nowadays would be like, but I was on the floor and somebody was on top of me. I think it was Damien.
I think it was Damien too.
He was Damien trying to get the stupid football off me. And I'm laughing. I'm like, get off me. And then, and then I cut it to pieces and Damien glued it all back together. But
the look on your face when you like, because you thought that was over. You're like, I win. I told you that I was going to do it. Cut it to pieces. We'll never see it again.
Cut that into pieces.
Yeah, you thought you'd never see it again, and I will never forget, like, just your jaw drop.
Because first of all, you have to have a really steady hand to be able to do that. It had to take hours, and the whole reason was like, I don't care if you're throwing a football around, but it was like that funking noise back and forth right outside my. And I'm like, stop throwing it. It's annoying. And then I could hear you guys, and like it like. Plink, lands in my office. So I went to grab it and Damien jumped on top of me. So I remember that was fun. And I know like you have, but I do like the day that like we were all working late and you were trying to leave your out of office.
I was going on vacation. Yeah.
And I was working with Steve on some design, and every time, because like everybody screws it up. You're like, oh, this is John Popko. I'm going to be out of the office between blah, 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 whatever. And you were messing it up. So he kept like screaming in the background, like Kermit the Frog. Yeah. And like, so you had to keep re-recording it. Then I remember just sitting there laughing, and finally you like lost your shit.
I wish I still had that. Are you fucking kidding me? I wish I still had that somewhere.
I think I have it somewhere too.
Yeah.
So mad. It was hilarious.
It was.
Yeah, I really like that. That was a fun moment. So
it's a shame that Steve and I are no longer friends.
I know. It makes me sad. But
yeah, it is what it is.
It's life. It's life. But I mean, that was funny. And then like with the girls there, like Katie and Janelle, like because Katie too, everyone grew up at the paper, right? It's like all these life lessons. I remember Katie spilled coming up the steps. I think it was like French toast coffee or something like that. And she was like geeking out about it. And she comes to my office, she's like, it's like everywhere. I just spilled it like all over the steps. Like, what do I do? I'm like, you have to go clean it up. Like you have to go. And she's like, oh yeah. All right. And she cleans it up.
You don't have a janitor for that?
Yeah. Like, so, and just those little moments, I think, but I mean, it was just, and again, you just learn like, you get thick skin very, very fast because of your like the type of clientele. So it's like you're learning, and at least for me, like I wasn't exposed to any of those things growing up, and I wasn't exposed to any of those things in college. So like, everything in the back of the newspaper was all brand new to me. Like I had never seen anything like that before. And now it's like, okay, now you have to go there and you have to like meet people and pay. But it like all of a sudden you're like, okay, these are just people. Like everyone's just trying to like get by, right? Everyone's just trying to make a living. And it just, I don't know. I think it humbles you a little bit, and you're just like, I don't know. And then you go from that to then throwing like all your events at G Club 10 and hanging out there every single weekend, right? So it's like it didn't even think, and never even thinking anything of it. So I actually like that journey, like that just kind of going from like, oh my God, this is also shocking to be like everybody. We're all just people, just having a good time and trying to make a living.
Yeah, and talk about the thick skin because. You were a young sales rep female for the Weekender, which the Weekender was, I don't want to say primarily men, but I think it was probably 60-40-ish men, women, attractive, and I'm not asking you to call anybody out or anything like that, but I'm sure there was instances where, a bar owner or business owner who was a man, may have thought that they could take advantage of you, not in a sexual way by any means, but oh, this is a woman. This is my chick rep from the Weekender, like, whatever. Yep. Like it is what it is, but like
all the time. Yeah. Like I mean, there are strip clubs that we went to, like, and again, I'm not going to name any of the names, and they were like, hey, you want to work part-time on the side? And I'm like, no, like I work for the paper, like, thanks, but no, I'm not going to do that. And like, but that being said, it's not like that was the norm for me. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I think there were some appointments that like, they would, take the appointment because they thought they could flirt, whatever. But then when they realized like, all right, she actually knows what she's talking about. And I was never there to just take their money. Like I really wanted to see businesses grow. I really wanted to help them. So I think once people kind of understood that, they're like, all right, she's legit. And like, I had great relationships with a lot of the like back of the paper, Weekender, which people think are like scandalous, but there was a lot of like adult entertainment, like strip clubs and stuff, where there were some really nice managers that I worked with who were very polite and very civil and never tried anything or said anything. So, you can't stereotype, it was some of the bar owners, some of them even restaurant owners that would say something outlandish. It wasn't like the strip club owners. Yeah. They didn't act like that.
I wonder too, like, obviously there's escort ads in the back of the Weekender. They would advertise, their number, saying, hey, we'll be a companion for the evening, or whatever it might be. Like, I mean, how is that different than what single people do today with like Tinder and those things? This is still like, going through a digital portfolio, just kind of like, that people are giving their information. They'll text or whatever. I don't know that life, thankfully.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works exactly, so I don't want to like get caught up with the ins and outs of, but it's kind of similar, and people are hooking up in different ways.
Yeah. And it's, a lot of those places, like what they were supposed to be doing was just giving like massages.
That's all they were doing.
So, yeah. And there was one place actually, again, I was helping out with like inside sales at the time. I was young, and I didn't know that those places exist. I didn't know. I thought if you were a massage parlor, like you went to school to become a massage therapist and you were a massage, like that's what I thought. Yeah, no idea.
We grew up in Hemlock Creek. I know.
I wasn't exposed to that kind of stuff. So it was like a rude awakening, and then, then of course I was always talking about it. Like, did you know? But like one of those places once, who never even saw me, I was just talking to them on the phone, trying to get their ad. And they're like, hey, are you looking for like part-time work? Do you want to work here? And I was like, oh, I'm not a licensed therapist. I don't know how to give massages. And I'll never forget it. She's like, you don't need to learn you don't have to know how to do massage. You just have to like massage people topless. And I was like, nah, thank you so much for the offer, but like, I'm okay. Like I'm making a living. I'm all right, whatever. But like, that was my first experience that I was like, oh, this is different. These aren't people that are going to like allied massage therapy or whatever and getting certified. Like I didn't know that world existed. So,
right.
And then 12 years later, I was like in it, but
I'm still upset that I was never offered.
No, that should not be one of your like big.
Well, I mean, I wasn't going to accept, but I'm like, I'm there every week.
Maybe they just respected you enough that they didn't offer.
No, that's not what it was. I don't know what it was. So it wasn't that.
I don't feel sensitive about it. I went to a place once. I was working for Christie, and I went to pick up their money for, it was like a little 1x2 ad. And when I went in, like pit bulls came running from the back, like full charge at me. And I was terrified. I was terrified in Plymouth. And like all these pit bulls came running. And I remember going to Christy, I'm like, I'm never going there again. It's never going to happen. Not that I have anything against pit bulls, but it was crazy. It was a crazy situation to pick up like $20 worth of cash. And I was like, she's like, you don't have to go there. They can bring it in or like see how, send in a check or something. But yeah. But again, like at the end of the day, I think people are just trying to get by, life can be hard for everybody. So,
yeah, I mean, and talk about that, because I feel like, as a sales rep and even a general manager, like I feel like 2002, 2003, and even up till like the economy tanking, so to speak, in 2008, like things were good.
Things were good. We were fat and happy.
You would say, hey, full page ad, $700. They'd be like, here you go. Done.
Yeah, you didn't have to negotiate. There was nothing. No added value offers. Just this is it. Yep.
And I didn't get into sales until 2007. I had to wait for Katie to leave so I could walk over her dead body.
Yeah.
And then so like I had like a year of like this is life is good. But I would see like I was taking care of the ads and building the pages out and all that kind of stuff like that. So it was like, it seemed easy. Like, yeah, full page ad, $700. Okay, no big deal. Here you go. Here's cash. Yep. And then 2008 came, and it was a new world.
It was really hard because, like, I remember people trying to negotiate because it was a competitive market. We had a competitor that came in the area and they'd be like, well, they only charge me half. I'm like, well, they have half the audience. So like you're paying for what you get. So it's like, do you want the bigger audience or not? And then like, you could just kind of talk through like the actual data, and your statistics and, and like what their demographics. And they'd be like, oh, okay. And you weren't selling them, it wasn't a false information. You were like, this is really what the paper is. And they would buy it. But when 2008 hit, that's when like the whole added value started. Like you could no longer just give them one thing for their money. You had to build in like packages to everything. And that was difficult. That was really difficult. And that's also like, it's right around that time, I feel like when the whole like Groupon came out, remember? And then we were doing like Daily Deal and everything. Yeah. So, because you're trying to help out restaurants. It was just a tough time for everybody, but You couldn't be arrogant going into it and being like, well, this is who we are. Like you had to adjust. And then just unfortunately, sometimes when you have to adjust because of the market, well, then that becomes your new ad rate. Like that's what it's worth.
Right. That's the new normal. And there's no going back.
No.
Which is unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just, I forgot what I was going to say about the whole like changing of, but before that happened though, it was like you could almost turn down the business though. There was like so much. I mean, there was times I think before that we were, or maybe it was even after. I think we had to get creative, but I think 96 pages was like the max page count that the Weekender could be. And there was 1 week in Weekender history, I think we did 112. I don't remember the exact number, but we had to find a way to add more pages to the Weekender. And it had to, maybe it was 2007-ish because Katie was gone, I think. Janelle was still there. But early days, you could afford to be like, if people were giving you a hard time, you could be like, no, okay, well, I'm not going to do business with you.
We did it. I remember
you don't need to.
Yeah, I remember firing accounts. If they were just like too difficult to work with, be like, all right, just, take your business elsewhere.
Yeah. Why don't you tell a story about a business? Don't name the name. That's not what we're here to do. We're not here to call anybody out, but there was an account, and it maybe helped my memory, but there was an account that I feel like the Weekender would get delivered to their establishment, and we caught them throwing the Weekender away in their dumpster.
Yep.
And then calling us saying they never got delivered.
Yep. Just to make our lives miserable. Because that's
crazy
to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like that, I know what account you're talking about. Like I got kicked out of that account because I was like stuck in traffic and I was trying to like hurry up and get there and go on an appointment, and I got stuck. And so by the time I got there, I was like being like disrespectful and got screamed at. And I remember I was like, I'm out of here. Like, I don't need to take this. And then that's when we stopped doing business with them a while, and then we kind of made up and started again. But they were just, it was taking, like, when you sat down and did the math, the time we were spending running Weekenders back and forth, making like just unnecessary changes to the ads, faxing. We were faxing ads to them when they were on vacation, like all these different things. And people, I remember all of us, like sales reps, graphic designers, all of us were like miserable because we were getting put through the ringer. And I remember I worked for Susan Kalo at the time. I'm like, what do I do? She's like, fire them. And she's like, and who are their competitors? So I was like, I named all the competitors. She's like, now give all those competitors as much love as you could possibly give them. And it was awesome. Yeah. And I was like, that is great. And that's exactly what we did.
Yeah. But 2008 came, and it's like I don't think any sales company has kind of rebounded from that in a sense where they're in a position where they're like, oh, no, I don't need your money because we're good. Yeah. Because that's what happened. It was like, we got to the point where revenue was so far down, and it wasn't just the Weekender or the newspaper industry, but to a point where like we couldn't refuse. Like we had to get whatever we could. Yeah. We could. Yeah. Like it was like that desperate almost. Yeah.
And you had to basically then you had to work around everyone else's schedule. Like, I mean, and we did, like, we were flexible even before that. Like we understood, like some businesses didn't open till late. They're like, all right, I can't pick up money till 9 o'clock at night. But then when 2008 hit, then it was really like, well, now you have to come at 10 at night, or now you have to come at 7 o'clock in the morning. So it's like whatever their schedule was became our schedule. And that made things a little tough. So, and it's not, I mean, again, even before that, it's like firing an account and rejecting, that wasn't the norm for us either. Like we weren't jerks. Like we did everything we could to like accommodate people and work with people. But I remember that specific incident where I was like, my team's not happy. Like they're having a hard time with this. This is causing like more grief than what this ad is worth. And it all worked out. Like we all made up and they did business with us again and it worked out. But it's just, at the time I was just like, we need a break from this. And maybe you need a break from us too.
Yeah.
It was just becoming too hostile.
And you mentioned your team. Talk a little bit about going from sales rep to sales manager, marketing manager to being the GM and having a team underneath you, and what that meant to you as an individual, what it meant to you as a leader, and how you kind of navigated those waters. Because it's definitely, it's not easy because I always say, and I was in your seat, I think a little differently, but same seat, literally.
Yeah.
And for me, I always said, when you're a sales rep, you have one person to worry about, and that's yourself. Yep. Which is great, because you have a number, you have to hit it. If you don't hit it, then you get talked to, or if you have a good manager, they kind of figure out how they can help you and achieve your goals and yada, yada, yada. But as a manager and a general manager, that one person becomes, you can now obtain 8 headaches or however many members of your team you have. Yeah. So talk a little bit about that. And because you were young, I mean, I think you were you even 30 yet when you?
Oh,
yeah, you were very young. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think, I definitely had to learn as I went along. I didn't have any management book that I was reading, but I was very, very fortunate to have a lot of mentors in my life, right? Because as I said, I worked for Kathy Pileshi, I worked for Christy, I worked for Susan, I worked for Carolyn Young. And then I had my dad, who I would run everything by, because my dad was a manager, forever. And so I would just run ideas past them. And I just remember early on, because you're so in it, you're so passionate about it. And if somebody wasn't thinking the same way you were thinking, I remember my dad telling me your first rule of management is to understand that not everyone is you. Not everyone thinks the same way as you. Not everyone's going to react the same way as you. You might think something's great. Someone else is going to hate it. So I remember taking that to heart, but I wish I had more experience in understanding different behaviors and how to manage through that. Because again, you're just well, this is great. This is a great job. I love this. And so if someone was really struggling with something, I would try to help them through it. But you're kind of you realize this is a good gig, right? Why don't you feel the same way I feel? Right. Now as a manager, I've been a manager since I've been 26 years old. So now I have different training. It's a little bit of, maturity behind me as well. That you have to realize that you have to, as a manager, adapt to how that person wants to be managed. Right. So, somebody who is all about the details and is super organized, and you come in all excited all the time, they might shut down. They might want the details first, and then they could get excited about it. I'm a very easily excited person. So I come in with it and everything with excitement. And now I realize, looking back, I was so some people probably maybe were I'm not taking her seriously. She's too because they're not that way. And so you have to kind of adapt and, and manage people in the way that they can receive information and stuff, because they'll respect you more for it as well, because you're taking the time to learn about them and their personalities. So, I don't think, there was a lot of things that I ran past different, mentors in my life, but if I could go back now, the manager that I am now and the experience I have now and just some of the resources I've been exposed to and some of the education, I was I would have done that differently. I would have done that differently. So, but again, I feel there was a lot of I guess if we're in our late 20s and 30s, we're not kids, but I felt we were kind of kids and just figuring it all out. So I don't know. I think that, and I also think that we're always learning. I think that management is always evolving. Now it's servant leadership, right? So, it's not about just managing people and giving them orders and giving them assignments. And I never managed that way anyway, so that worked out for me. But I think it all changes, but I think you need to evolve with your team. And I think the managers who fail are the managers who are this is the way I manage. This is my playbook, and everybody else needs to adapt. That's dictatorship. So that's not true. And maybe that's managing, but that's not leadership. So right. I believe in being a good leader for a team. And even now I feel my number one responsibility is, I have a lot of goals and I have to accomplish them. But my number one responsibility is making sure my team's okay and making sure that they hit their goals, because I want them to be the ones to have all the successes.
You were always that for us. And I know Katie touched on a moment she had with you, dealing with a difficult account. And she called you. I think she was very upset, and you met her out on the road that same day.
Yeah, that was a rough day.
Whether you believe it or not or realize it or not, you were always that type of leader. Which was great. And I think it was just important for... and you were only 4 years older than most of us. Damien was probably closer to your age. Yeah. Steve was, I think, 2 years younger than you. But we definitely looked up to you as, and I think we joke about it too, this this person who was not much older than us, but always portrayed herself to be, and someone we looked up to and that we could, talk to if we needed to.
Yeah, that was important to me because the members of our team throughout all of the years at the weekend are like, I genuinely care. I cared then and I care now about those people. Like, I just feel like there was a lot of hard work and a lot of talent and a lot of creativity and blood, sweat, and tears and everything. And I genuinely cared. So any like hiccups that we ever had, or if somebody wasn't upset, like I really did take it personally, even though at the time it might not have seemed it. Like, I carry that with me today because like I take those moments where I'm like, okay, what did I do wrong at that time? How could I have learned from that? Like, what would I have done differently? So, and you and I have talked about that pretty candidly. I've taken just moments of where I was like, nah, I failed that person. Like, I could have done a better job here. But again, I was trying to figure it out as I go along. And so it's not like I didn't care or didn't try, but there was, nothing's perfect. So I did my very best, but there's definitely moments where I'm like, God, if I could do that over again, I would. And here's how I would do it. So,
yeah, but you say we're like, we're late 20s, early 30s. Like, it's not that, or maybe we should be old enough to kind of navigate that life. But like, really, that's like looking back on that now, like we were kids even then, and you're saying you're a general manager of a weekender who's like, the revenue, and I don't know what it was at the peak, and maybe you can shine some light on this, but as far as revenue was concerned, when you were GM, like, we're not talking like $100,000 a year. We're talking millions of dollars.
Millions. Yeah. It was like 2 million, I think, like in its heyday.
So there's a 29-year-old running the ship. Yeah. Like it's cool, but like, it's like Joe Rogan has a comedy bit about like, when we're kids, like we see our parents and we think that like they have it all together. And then you grow up and you're a parent or whatever it might be. And you're like, I don't know what's going on still. Like,
I know.
It's just weird to think about.
Like, when am I supposed to be grown up and have this all figured out? Like, I'm still waiting for that day too. But yeah, I think part of growth and maturity is learning from the things that you did wrong or what you could have done better. Right. If we all did everything right the first time, none of us would ever learn.
Right.
I mean, that's just not the way it works. So it's like, I think for me, like my intent was always good. Like I can say that honestly, like, because I loved the paper. I wanted to represent the paper in a positive way. I wanted to have a hell of a good time while I was doing it, but I wanted everyone else to have just as much fun, that I was having. So,
and we did.
Yeah, but I think people had different stresses, and people, again, they deal with stress differently. And I think there were moments, and especially like towards the end when I was doing Times Leader and Weekender, and I was just like, I was starting to run a little ragged there. And I was like, I just feel like I couldn't dedicate enough time to like anything. I just felt like I was like, you know what I mean? I was like working on like big Times Leader events. Like, I was in charge of all the big events, best and brightest, all of it. And then I was also in charge of the Weekender, and I had 2 offices between the buildings. And that's when it became a little hard, where I was like, you know what? Like, I wish I could have given a little bit more, like, not myself as if like, oh, I'm some big, guru to show people the way, but like my time, just to give my time and attention a little bit more. Because I think sometimes people look at it as like, she didn't really care. Or maybe it was, but it wasn't that. It's just like, there's only so many hours in the day. I mean, I was working till 9, 10 o'clock at night, almost every night.
And I think there's at times, when, an employee who, I'm going to say 9 to 5, but like, that's not a dig at anybody at the weekend, because we never work 9 to 5, but in general, 9 to 5 workers, they see a boss and they just see your manager and they see like, oh, well, they come in and they're Bentley or whatever they're driving, like, oh, they're a hot shot. They come in, they tell us what to do, and they leave at 5, and that's the end of it. And that's not, I think that's like, that's portrayed in movies and TV shows. And I don't think a lot of managers, like every manager that I've had have never worked 9 to 5. Never. And that's not a fair representation of what a manager is. It's not a good manager, I don't think. Unfortunately, I don't think people should, work 60 hours a week, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, talk a little bit about that. I mean, you were diehard weekender, GM 2006, and I want to say 2010-ish. I could be wrong. That's just what my memory recalls. You kind of started getting pulled, like you said, to weekender and times later. And obviously, when you're pulled in two directions, one thing is going to suffer, whether we want to believe it or not. Like you can't do both. It's work.
Yeah, there were just a lot of asks at that time. So, and as I said, it's not if I was just doing a little bit of each thing, but I was like responsible for really big projects. So like when I started and I was working for the Times Later Weekender, like, as like a part-time marketing. And then even when they made me full-time, my responsibilities were like, hey, we need a float for the Pittston Parade. Like you, Stephen Perlsky and Kathy Pileschke, go build a float. Like it was that kind of stuff. Then I became vice president of marketing for the Times Later, and I was general manager of the Weekender. So those are, I had to go to all the department head meetings at the Times Later, and the paper was changing. And a lot of those changes, they're like, okay, implement this at the Weekender. And like, this is the way it has to be done. So you were trying to kind of like shift all the time. And it was just, as I said, like I was running back and forth between offices, and I worked for Prashant at that time. And Prashant was giving me guidance too. And he was just like, he knew I was like starting to burn out a little bit. He's like, because I was there like 8, because also at the Weekender, you could start a little later if you had a promotion to 2:00 in the morning. Now I'm going to promotions at 2:00 in the morning, and I got to be at the Times Later at 8. So it was like, it was hard. It was really hard. But again, I loved the paper and I was willing to do anything for it. So, but I think at that time it was hard. Like I'd be at a meeting at the Times Later, and then we would have like our team meeting, on Wednesdays that we always had. And like, if you're running late, that probably looks disrespectful to the team, but like there's just so much, you only have so much time. You can only move so fast in between. And then the Times Later, like Steve was working a lot with me, like Ray Decker, Amy Casaldi, which that was a really, really small team working on marketing for the Times Later. And then we had an agency that was involved, and it was just like, and again, while all this is happening, media is changing. How people are getting media is changing. Like the Daily Deal is out there. Now we need a more robust website. There's social media. There was just a lot of changes happening all at once. So again, for me, part of it was fun, but then it was like, this is a lot. This is just too much, because on top of it, I was also representing the Times Later at all their community events. So I was doing like all the sponsorship deals for like, at the time it was called the Association for the Blind or the YMCA. So I'm doing that and then going to those events as well. So I just, it was a good lesson, but I kind of had to pivot quickly every day. It was hard.
Yeah. And I've said this before in different podcasts, I still stand by this to this day. I feel like newspapers in general operate in a fear of loss.
Yeah.
And I mean that, when I say that, I mean like they're so concerned about losing account XYZ as opposed to, looking ahead, the bigger picture, and kind of seeing like, how can I maintain this, but also like look towards the future, add value to the product, which would add value to the customer I'm worried about, all those things. But they're so worried about that one thing. They're so scared of losing it that they can't walk forward. They can't move forward. They can't even invest in, this is towards management. Like they can't even invest in the future of the product because they're so worried about, we can't lose this because then we can't function at all. It's like, and I get that, I do, but in the same sense, like if your product is failing, how does that benefit the client that you're worried about losing?
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, you need to be more strategic on how to, like, what do you need to do differently with that product, right? What do you need to do and change it, and not just, and that's why I think like when we worked for, like, Rich Connor was, he's a cowboy through and through. And, but his ideas were just so, he's like, let's just do it. Let's just go for it. And so, and it was like, it was fun because, you weren't afraid to like try new things. And then like, and then I worked for Prashant, and Prashant had he was just a different type of manager and stuff, but he was like, okay, this is the way he wanted things more streamlined and stuff, it was a good lesson for me, is I had to learn a little bit more to kind of like strategize and maybe have like a more organized schedule. I couldn't just say, let's just throw it in the air and see what happens. So, but then I do remember towards the end, and it was certain managers, I don't think they were there that much longer actually after me, but like, I remember being in meetings because again, it was a very stressful time. Like, revenue was starting to decline and it was no one's fault. It was just like, it was the market's fault, I guess you could say. Like the market was just changing. So everyone's trying to figure out how to adapt and how to adjust to this new market. What's not cool to me and a team that like I never want to work on, I'm not about finger pointing. I'm about solutions, right? Like, let's find a solution. Let's work together. I love to roll up my sleeves and be like, because I feel like I'm part of like this team to figure it out. And when people are starting to like point fingers and like, well, it's this person's or this person's dropping the ball, I'm out at that point. Like I can't operate that way because like that's never, you're never going to be progressive. You're only going to point out faults and you're looking for somebody to be the scapegoat, So to me, you can't get out of that. Like there's no way to move forward from that. So, and I saw a little bit of that, like, as you said, I didn't leave on bad terms. I was super sad when I left the paper, but I just remember just kind of thinking about that a little bit and like, okay, well, this is the type of manager I don't want to be. And it wasn't any of my managers. I just saw other people in other departments. So I was like pointing some fingers and I was like, it's just not a cool way to be. And I don't want to ever do that to team members.
That's, you talked about pointing the fingers and I feel like, you never really like came down on me. You never really came down on any of us. You were always really good at empowering us. Mm-hmm. But I remember specifically when you looked me like dead in the eye, mm-hmm. And you kind of like said to me like, "Are you going to be part of the solution or part of the problem?"
Yeah, I remember that day like yesterday.
Yeah,
I remember that because I remember you like again. You're passionate about. You're like, this is what's going on. Like, and I remember you like posing the problem and I was like, okay, what's your solution for that problem? And I remember you sitting and really like, I remember you're like, okay. And then you were like thinking it through. And that's so important to me because people want to work with helpers. They want to work with people who are solution based. Like right. It's so easy to point out problems. Like the world's a crazy place. There's a lot of problems, right? It's so easy to point it out. But if you're not willing to do something about it, like nobody wants to hear it. Like I don't want to hear people's problems all day. Like I want to know what the problem is, but like, you can't set a pattern for yourself where it's just constantly like complaining about something or pointing out problems. Like it's important. It's important for someone to be like always the devil's advocate. It's equally important to be part of the solution-based team if you want to get ahead.
Yeah.
So
I remember that well.
I do too.
But you also mentioned, departing from the Times Leader and the Weekender, and that was, a company and divisions that's all you knew. Talk a little bit about that. What ultimately led to that, what you moved on to, and all that.
Sure. Well, I left, as I said, where I was like, okay, this is all I know. Newspapers changing, like what do I want to do? And like I knew, as I said, like digital was going to be a big part of it. And I was like, I just feel I need to be more diversified, right? I need to learn some new things. It was a huge decision to resign. I kind of got somebody came to me from an e-commerce startup who was like, hey, I have this opportunity. So like I wasn't really looking at the time, but I got approached. So I was thinking about just like my overall view on where I was in my career and then, being approached. I'm like, maybe this could be exciting and it could be something different. But it was super scary because it was like, it was all I knew, but it was like my family too. You know what I mean? It's not that I didn't stop loving it. Like I loved it. But I just felt like I needed to challenge myself a little bit. So when I left, I remember it was nice. There was like a party at Rodano's. I remember I got like some little like sculpture or whatever. And it was really sweet, but it was a really, really emotional time for me. And I left, it was right after my last issue was the swimsuit issue, which I just felt was really appropriate because it was one of my favorite issues because it was like the most popular issue. It was always fun I organized them all the time. I was constant. Remember those days, like reaching out to people and be like, want to be in the swimsuit issue? And you didn't think anything of it.
Do you think that could still be done today?
Oh, I don't know. Probably not, right? Because it's probably like objectifying people or probably not. I don't know.
I don't know. It's not like we made
alternative publication.
Well, there was that, but we didn't make anybody do it. It's not like we were like,
no, No, we didn't make anyone do it.
We have to be more body conscious, I guess you could say. We'd have to include
I don't know.
More diversity.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is fine. I mean, that's I'm not saying we shouldn't.
As far as like body types, like we had some people who were like stick thin, and then we had people who were like muscular, but I don't know. It was a swimsuit issue, right? So we were trying to make it very like Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, and that's what it was. And then we had guys too, because I had to solicit all those guys. I would just like go hang out at the gym and ask people.
Such a terrible life, Rachel Pugh.
I know. That's why I'm like,
go work out. Like all these guys working out too. Oh, geez.
Do you want to be in the guys were worse than the girls. They were harder on themselves than the girls.
Yeah.
It was fun. I never thought anything of it. Like going up to people in bathrooms, like, you're pretty. You want to be in the model of the week? I did it all the time. In the Woodlands, I remember the Woodlands was like, I was like, all right, I got to go find models. And I'd go to the Woodlands on the weekend and just ask. Or my friend Vicky was recruited for everything.
Yeah.
Poor Vic she was in, I don't even know how many swimsuit issues. God bless. I have a funny story about Vicky too. And also a swimsuit thing, but it wasn't even for the issue. It was for promotion, but I'll get to that. But anyway, so it wasn't just about like, oh God, this is scary and I don't know anything else. But like, also I'm like, this is so much fun. Like I've done so many great things. Like what if nothing is ever like this again? Like, or what if something's dry, or what if something's like too corporate-y for me and stuff? Like, I don't know what it's like to be like, just this, like, tie and suit type of corporate person. Like, I just don't know how to do it. So I did the e-commerce thing for like a little less than a year. I left there. It just wasn't something I wanted to pursue, but met some great friends there. And then I started applying for different jobs, and I was actually going to work for Genetti's. I was like, all right, I'll go do that. And I'm like, at least I'll be in the hotel and like restaurant business and stuff. That would be cool. And then, but at the same time, I had applied to Banco, and they reached out to me. And my boss at the time, Paul Jackson, called me. And by that time, again, I was going to go work for Genetti's. And I was like, no, I already told Genetti's I was going to work for them. So, and then Chuck Cohen, the owner, called me and was like, listen, I think this could be a good opportunity. And I was like, Chuck Cohen's calling me. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
And I remember calling my dad, like, Chuck Cohen just called my cell phone. And I was nervous about like a dentistry, and it's like marketing dentistry. Like, how's it going to be? And it was so much more than I thought it was going to be. Like, I didn't know I'd have all the opportunities that I did have, like, or still do have, obviously, but like just traveling for the company, and dentistry it's a dynamic industry. You really don't know about dentistry until you get into dentistry. And I've met amazing dentists from all over the country, and like dentists who have offices and who like see celebrities in Los Angeles and have an office in Dubai, and like just crazy. Or dentists who are dentists by day, but like they also like model on the side. Like, it's crazy. And then we have a magazine, and I get to work from that. It's a national magazine, and we work with the editor, who's now the creative director at Forbes magazine. Like, so there's just been a lot of really cool opportunities. So I've been fortunate to go from such a like wild background of like arts and entertainment publication, and to switch to dentistry, which you wouldn't think, I'm like, well, how are the two going to relate? But I love it. There's a lot of, again, as I said before, I don't want to be the person who just does one thing every day. Like, I can do so many different things at Banco, and they encourage you to learn about all the different departments and to be part of it and to help different departments. So that's what I do now.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. So I got to see a lot of the country. I've traveled all over the country. It was because like Banco encourages you to co-travel with salespeople so you could learn more about dentistry. And my manager at the time was like, don't just travel in Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania, like, we started here. So we have a good market here. Like, try to go where maybe like we're newer in different areas so you can learn. And he's like, just pick places. I'm like, cool. So I went to Beverly Hills, I went to Nashville. I went like all these cool places, and it's awesome just to see how different the market is depending on where you go. So
very cool. I'm happy for you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Sounds exciting.
I work in digital marketing, ironically.
There you go.
Yeah.
And before you said you have a big budget, so
yeah,
you can get things done.
I know.
It's funny how money helps.
I didn't even have a budget.
Yeah. Give me $1. It's more than I had, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So, I wanted to tell you about my funny story of Vicky.
Oh yeah. And then I have an ask for you as well.
Okay. So again, when I started at the Weekender, I was just like doing marketing. You're just kind of like going to places and working promotions and whatever. You could do anything. You could and just try things out, and no one thought anything of it. So we had a bar owner. I guess it was my account. I think I had the Scranton region at that time, and they were like a dive bar. It was like a biker dive bar, and they were having a swimsuit contest, because at that time like bars had like best body contests and things like that. It was crazy.
Wrestling. Yeah,
I judged tons of that stuff. Like, it was insane. So
amateur night at G Club 10. What's up?
Yeah. No, I remember recruiting people to go. They're like, "This is great," or like going to judge things and be like, "Guys, we have to go judge this contest." I remember Damien Pick being like, "I can't believe this is part of my job," but.
That never happened. Hopefully his wife doesn't listen to this. That never happened.
God. But which is crazy. I remember when his first son was born. I remember when he ran out of the office because his wife was in labor. Isn't that crazy?
Well, I think that you saw him run out, and I saw him in the parking lot of the hospital.
Yeah.
I wasn't even working there yet.
Insane. But anyway, so they were having this contest. And the manager of the bar was like, can you please bring people? Like, no one's signing up for this contest. It's going to be a bust. And I was their sales rep. So I was like, call Vicky. I'm like, Vic, you have to be in this best body gun. This like biker bar in Scranton. It's no longer. It's completely shut down. And Vicky is like the most easygoing person, right? She's like, okay. So she would just agree to do all of these things, these crazy cover stories, and like, again, swimsuit issues, all these things. So she went up, and it was Vicky, myself, and my brother. I brought my brother with me. So it was the three of us in this like dive bar. So by the time I got there, and like Vicky, whatever, was just kind of walking around in her bathing suit, there was, I guess the bar recruited like one or two, I don't remember, their bartenders. So now they have like people who work there and all their patrons there. So it was oh God, it's so degrading. Now when I'm saying it out loud, I was like, it's so gross. But like, again, when you're 23 years old, you don't even think about it. But it was by a round of applause and like people yelling and stuff. Just like, I would never ask one of my friends to put themselves through this at this day and age. But we're talking like 20 years ago. Yeah. So people were like, for my friend, just like cheering and cheering and cheering for her. And then the girls who work there, like, these are their people, like, these are their patron stuff. They were just like, so Vicky wins. So now these girls who work at this bar are like furious about it. So this whole thing starts, they're like talking crap to us. And it was my brother who was just like, I think we need to go. I think they're getting upset. And one person's yelling like, "You got robbed, Gretchen," to this other bartender and stuff. Like, it was so I'm like, "Vicky, put your clothes on. We have to leave right now." So she's trying to like throw her sweatshirt on. I don't even know what she won. It was probably like a pizza gift certificate or something stupid. Like, not even worth the drive up there. But
a day pass at Nayog Park in Scranton, PA.
Yeah, something for tickets to go see Jewel and Rob Thomas.
There you go. But
it was
funny.
Stuff like that all the time. It was, I don't know. My whole family was, because again, I wrote the column that we had the Weekender model the man of the week. So I would recruit all of them. Like, my cousin Gregory was a man of the week. All my sisters, my brother. I think even my mom was in one of my fashion columns. Like, they were all in it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you also had a column called Fashion Styles. Right? Style Files. Jesus. Fashion Styles. That makes no sense. Style Files. Yeah.
And I wrote a word column a couple times.
Yeah.
Got some hate mail.
Vicky was a trooper. You're right. I remember was she the one that put on the candy?
Liquid latex,
but didn't.
Oh, yes. No, she didn't put on the candy bra. She did the cakes.
The cakes. So I have two claims of fame for the Weekender, right? And
13.
So it was 13. That was 2006, I guess. Yeah, 93. So I remember we had two cakes, then they were presented in front of
Yeah.
Breasts. Okay. Well, we're adults here. We can say breasts.
Yeah.
And I remember everyone's standing around looking at the picture. Damien's there, looking at the picture on the screen. Alan's there. Joe B's there. Trying to figure out words for the cover.
Oh, God.
And we're just staring at it, right? And I come around the corner. I think I pushed my seat back and I said, what about look how we've grown? Boom.
Boom.
Those were the cover words.
Now Johnny Weekender was born. It was.
That's when I knew I was where I belonged in life.
So good.
At that moment. Look how we've grown. I do think Alan was kind of like, what does that mean? And I'd explain it. I'm like, breasts, they grow when you get a certain age. Forget it, Alan.
It was so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick was up for anything. See, like years ago, again, even when I was a sales rep, I don't even think I was in marketing. I was like a sales rep, but I did like sales. I always did marketing, even when I was in sales. So Christy always made me like in charge of the swimsuit issue. I was just always doing it. So I was always recruiting people. And I remember we went to Harvey's Lake because Grotto was like the sponsor or whatever. And I was like, Vic, I need like another person. She's like, okay. She got up. She's a nurse. And at the time, I think she was a phlebotomist. So she's in her scrubs. She leaves work from whatever shift, shows up at Harvey's Lake. Like, and Vic, she's a natural beauty. You know what I mean? So she didn't even have to get all dolled up. She just like took her scrubs off. She's in her bathing suit. She had it ready. I guess she must have worn it to work all day. I don't know. Took her scrubs off. We jumped on the back of a boat. No, we didn't get permission. I don't know whose boat it was. We just jumped on a boat that was docked at Harvey's Lake. She like stood there. We took her picture. Like, okay, good. She thanks. Put her scrubs on. Went home and went to bed. She did stuff like that all the time.
Yeah.
She did the liquid latex story that Christy was talking about, which was ridiculous.
We got kicked out of Turkey Hill.
Yeah. For Danny Januzzi and Katie.
Yeah, Katie's hands. Danny's butt.
Yep. Yeah. I remember seeing that in the news. I was lying in bed. It was like 11 o'clock news. And it was like weekender removed, blah, blah, blah. And they were interviewing people. Remember they were like interviewing people outside of like the Penguin Stadium and stuff, like families. Yeah. What do you think about, like, what are you supposed to say with your little kids standing there? And I remember I sat up in bed and at first, you're panicking, like, this is terrible. And then I was like, this is really cool. This is really good. Like, this is bad press, but good press for us. Cause then it was like this scandalous thing. It was what women want issue.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we had the ability to push the envelope more in that direction. And I think, I don't know if we were scared, but we definitely didn't, especially after that, we didn't really, outside the swimsuit issues and things like that, we didn't really push too hard.
Yeah, there was, what was happening too, we have to realize that like Times Later had a board of like prominent people in the area because they had all invested in the paper. So that's when I started to get in like a little bit of trouble because I was told like push the envelope, like make people, not uncomfortable, but like you want people sometimes to be like, because it's an alternative publication. You should be talking about the subjects that like no one else is talking about. So like, we always try to do this. And like, I remember one cover, again, the cover that I got in trouble for. Like I remember my dad coming to me and was like, Rachel, like, do you think this is a little too much? And I remember my reaction was like, you're not my target audience. Like, you're at the time, I guess he was like a 60-year-old businessman. I was like, that's not who I'm, so, but there were definitely some board members that I got called in a couple times where it was like, this is too much. This is too scandalous. So it was like, then I had to kind of watch my P's and Q's at that time. So.
Yeah, well, that's what's the problem is too. Like you have these people who want you to do these things, but they also like, wait a minute.
Yeah, the paper.
You can't have both.
Rich did. Rich was like, he wanted to do one time for the Times Leader. It was it was called, which now it's very ironic, but it was called Dollar Days, and he wanted to sell the Times Leader for $1. And he's like, and he called me and was like, get like women, like promotional women or whatever. They were going to like pass it out and like they were going to pay $1. And we had all these different locations, like Wegmans. So we got like the Pioneer cheerleaders to go there, and it was just promo people. And then I got these girls and we went up to Sunshine Market, and, but I got girls who, they were like, some of them were dancers and stuff, but they were really pretty girls. And I thought, and then Sunshine Market was like, these girls are walking around in like skin tight jeans and high heels. They're like, get going. So we got kicked out of there. But like he would push the envelope with that. He put a billboard out with dollar days. And there was all these like attractive women who were going to be passing out the Times Theater. Ironically, it was called Dollar Days. And he didn't know that some of them were dancers. And I was thinking about that later on, and I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. But anyway, so we got in trouble for that one too. And so like things were like that. And it's not like I was some raunchy human being that I was like trying to like be scandalous, but I was like, this is what I know. Like these are my like friends and colleagues and business, this is who I work with. So,
but in addition to that, like your job is to capture an audience and get eyes on. That's how you do it. I mean, you can't like.
But that's why Weekender and Times Later didn't translate.
Right.
Different properties.
I get it. But it just, you have to do things to kind of like make people like really kind of, really?
Yeah.
And it was say no press is, or no press is bad press, or bad press isn't, what is that called? What is it? What's the saying?
No
such thing as bad.
Such thing as bad press.
Yeah.
I know. But again, Rich was getting pressure too. As I said, there was a board that he had to answer to. Like there's investors in the paper. So I got called in a couple of times, which wasn't awesome. But, I get it. I understand some of the things we did probably, was it in poor taste? Probably. But like we knew our audience and we knew what was going to sell, not sell, it was free. We knew how they were like, we knew which papers were going to be off the shelves, right? We knew when we were like, all right, we're going to have to replace them on this time because this issue is going to be like a hot issue. So, and I remember there'd be certain days or certain Wednesdays, like swimsuit or certain like, scandalous ones, we would print more on that day, on those days because they went really quickly.
Yeah.
And that was great because then we could tell advertisers, you need to advertise in this issue, regardless of what you think. Like if it's going to, like people are going to see your ad, they're picking it up.
Absolutely. I talked to Damien. He wanted me to bring. Oh, hold on. I got a notification here. The Red Sox beat the Mets, and the reason this is important is because you are a Yankees fan.
No,
and the Yankees suck.
I'm not a Yankees fan anymore.
Whoa, you're a flip flopper now. Yeah,
I don't even watch baseball.
Okay, all right. We'll get into that. We'll get into that in a minute.
Watch baseball.
I'm going to get into that in a minute.
Years. My last Yankees t-shirt was Robinson Cano. How long ago was that?
I don't want to hear it. We'll get into this in a minute. Whatever. Red Sox win. Damien wanted to tell a story when he and I talked, but he's like, you should tell it. It's the backstage pass story. Now, I don't know if this is like different than like the all access that we did.
No, it was the same thing. I don't remember. Was that the
maybe he called it backstage pass.
Yeah.
The feature was all access, and let's talk about that quick. Like editorial they did not want us to have anything to do with all access. All access was, I think, a phenomenal feature.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, all access was a feature in the weekend. I think we did it once a month. Where the sales reps who were the face of the Weekender, we were the ones who were out talking to the bands, talking to the bar owners, talking to everybody. We were the ones doing these things. So we, as the professional writers that we were, meaning none. I mean, Rachel, you had experience writing, but like people like Tiffany Stein and myself, like we're not professional writers. So for the editorial team, it was more of a headache for them because they had to edit our stories, and they took it very seriously. And looking back on it, and I'm not, this is not me talking poorly about them. It's one of those things. I'm glad they were prideful of their jobs and they wanted things to be, because their name's attached to it, right? We're the editor. If there's mistakes made, it falls on them, right? But these days, I mean, you could see people writing on Facebook. They don't even know how to spell words or
everybody's a journalist.
Use punctuation or anything. So it probably would make more sense today if that feature ran, because you could probably just print it as it was.
It was fun getting the content.
Right. Again, content creators. That's what we were doing. Yeah, that's what the world's about right now. So it's crazy to think about. Like we were doing those things, and again, I'm not discrediting anything about editorial. I understand the process and the importance of having well done stories.
Yeah, we had no right doing those columns.
For the product, yes, absolutely. So, they weren't going to do it.
Well, okay, yeah. That being said, we did. We had fun, but I'm sure it was a lot of extra work.
It was. It was. But All Access, we would travel with the bands and kind of give an all access view of what it was like to travel with the band. Like, we would start at, when they got in their cars, I traveled with less than one. I traveled to 2 shows on the Jersey Shore. But so we would start writing, from start to finish. So it was like, on the road, grabbing coffee, on the road, what we listened to in the car, to the show, setting up, breaking down, driving home, whatever it might be. We kind of try to capture that whole thing. So Rachel, Damien says you have a story about an All Access column.
I have a couple of them, but I know the one that he's talking about. So I went on the road with Spitcan. I don't know if they were Spitcan or Syphilis at the time.
Probably Spitcan.
Yeah, I think they were Spitcan at the time. So that's a whole other story too. Remember when we went to CBGB's?
Yeah.
That was so much fun. Okay, so anyway, Spitcan, and we went to the Gingerbread Man in Mechanicsburg. Okay. And I got in the car, and those guys are hilarious. Like, they are fun. They are great guys. And like Nick D obviously is married to, one of my closest friends, Vicky. And it was Josh Rosenblatt was their manager, and Germ and all of them do stuff. It was just Brian. It was a fun time. So I'm I get into the vehicle. So I get my whole spiel every time I did these articles. I'm like, listen, I want you to act and talk however you would act and talk. Like, pretend I'm not here. This is completely fly on the wall. I want day in the life. So just how, say the things you would say that, like, if I wasn't here, just pretend I'm not even here. And Jim Rosenblatt's just like, great. How about that rack on Rachel Pugh? And so it's just like that kind of stuff. So, and it was fun. And like, the thing is, it's like those trips, it's not like you just went, you went for like the 2 hours or 3 hours of their show. Like, you were with them all night. Like, I remember going to like Denny's with them afterwards, and like, and I get home at like 5 o'clock in the morning. So, I mean, you were pulling a really long shift to write this article. So I did one with, God, I can't remember the name of the band. It was like this screamo band. They were young. Nolan Anderson was in it. I can't remember. And they were going to the Bronx to some like screamo, like that type of music, where it was a bunch of bands playing like in the basement of an old church or whatever.
Right.
These are young guys. Yeah. And they picked me up at the Weekender. I drove to the Weekender. They picked me up, and I was like, oh God. They had a van, and on the back, written in duct tape, it said fart cart. So I'm like, I get in the car. There's no air conditioning. It's July. We're going to New York. That was another one. I got home at like 5 o'clock in the morning. So it was, it was fun, but it was hard work. I mean, it was tiring.
I was a blast. I remember the one with less than one. It was a Saturday, thankfully. But I mean, we started it was 7 a.m. and we didn't get home till probably 4 a.m.
Yeah, I know.
I had sushi for the first time in my life on that trip.
There you go. Very sophisticated.
Yeah, very, very fancy. But 2 shows.
Mm-hmm.
It was cool because like people from Wilkes-Barre actually came and traveled to the show for the second show. They were a lot of fun. And again, I mean, you look back on it and look at where we are today with how content is consumed, and I mean, that would be golden.
Oh my God. I know.
You'd want that content. You'd want the added exposure and shit. But
yeah, I did one with Hour After. Like, was it the Chameleon? Was that what it was called in Allentown?
I don't think I was there for that one.
They were opening for like an actual bigger band it was a band that like used to be big in like the 90s. I can't remember the name. And I remember writing like, I'm like, Hour After was better than that band now. They were much better. So it was fun.
Well, hopefully Guido won't watch this because he'll get a big head.
Yeah, they were. I mean, they did. They were a much better show. Because again, the other band, I'll have to think of it. I can't remember the name of it, but like they were popular probably like late 90s or early 80s, early 2000s. And like I remember like making fun of the way they were like jumping around. They felt like they just like aged out of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it just was no longer cool. So
that's my question from Damien.
Yeah.
He wanted you to tell a story.
Gosh, I was about to say, like, how about
that wasn't that hilarious, Damien?
Yeah, I think that's all he said. That's what I remember, unless I'm blocking something else out. But Josh, but we hung out with Josh Rosenblatt all the time.
Oh yeah, he was. I miss him. I just had a memory pop up on Facebook. I think it was yesterday, the day before. I actually got sushi with him. It was 4 years ago, which is the last. Well, no, I saw him at a thing at the Woodlands. Maybe 3 years ago, but it was 4 years ago we had sushi, and that was the last time I really hung out with him. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I love Josh. Like it was funny because his dad was a doctor, and my dad worked at John Hines Allied Services, and like I remember growing up as a kid, my dad talking about his dad because they also had that travel agency where they would book all the travel for all these major bands. And we'd be like sitting at the dinner table and my dad would be talking about like Dr. Rosenblatt and how he got to like he hung out with like Metallica or Iron Maiden or something like that. And when I was young, I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then years later, hanging out with Spitcam, I met Josh and somehow it came up like we were like kind of looking at each other, like we recognized each other's last names. And I was like, oh my God, your dad's the doctor who I've been here. Like I heard about him just growing up, forever. Right. So it was kind of interesting, but yeah, he's a great guy. He's a good human being.
Can we take a minute to pause this for a pee break?
Sure.
All right, 1 second.
Okay.
All right, that pee break was brought to you by Applied Botanics CBD products and Keller's Lawn Service. Call them for all your lawn needs. For real though, they are my sponsors. This is a legit podcast.
It's great. I didn't say anything. That's wonderful. I'm glad you have sponsors.
For all my listeners, my 5 listeners, that's legit. I use the Applied Botanics product. What's that?
Congratulations on getting sponsors. That's awesome.
I need a sponsor for my alcohol problem too. But speaking of which, yeah. So which ones of these have you watched? All of them or listened to?
I have to finish Damien's because I started his, but yeah, I watched all of them. It made me nostalgic. I'm like, every single one of them, I'm like, they're all good people. Like Nikki, when she's talking about like where she's working now and how she used to drive and go to Turkey Hill and pick the paper up and come into work. Like I got emotional. I got really emotional when she said that. I'm like, I don't know. It was just so great to see everybody.
Well, you mentioned being 80 years old and thinking back to these times. Yeah. That's why I'm doing this, because I'm hoping that I lived to 80 for one. But I imagine that my memory will probably be shot at that point. So I'm hoping to have these as things I can kind of go back to and watch or listen to.
And it's not like I sit around talking about myself in the old days all the time. But like, as I was saying when we started, like I had a friend at Banco actually, and he passed away, and I would just kind of like shoot the breeze with him and stuff in his office, and he would get the weekender because the weekender he worked at Banco long before I did, and so he recognized just us from that, and I would just be in his office talking about these like crazy weekender stories, and he was actually friends with Christina Dugan. He would hang out with Christina Dugan sometimes, so we would just chat about stuff and laugh and everything, and again I would just think about it, like those were really good times. Like there were some times where I was just like, I don't know how we got away with it. A little crazy. Parade days specifically were insane. Anytime we had a limo was insane. But I don't know. We were young and fun, and that's when you're supposed to do all that crap, right?
There's a saying as well. I hope I don't screw it up, but Shit, I'm gonna screw it up. I forget it. Damn it! I had it before. I was gonna say it, but I forget now. God damn it!
You'll
something. Youth is wasted on the young, or what's it saying? Something's wasted on the young.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I heard it recently. I'm like, wow, that's so true because, it was kind of along the lines of like, it's wasted on the young in that. Oh, I gotta look it up. This is crazy. This is making me mad now because it makes sense if you hear it. Yeah. Yeah, is it? I think it's youth is wasted on the young. Just because, no, maybe it can't be that. I'm going to sound stupid.
It's powerful, whatever it is, because it's obviously.
It's going to be it's very powerful. I can't even think of how it makes sense because I guess it's along the lines of you don't know how to take advantage of it because you're young and naive. But
that's the great part about it. Like that's
right.
Everything is new, and you're invincible, right? And it's exciting, and all you want to do is have fun and be with other people who want to have fun, and it's not like I wanted to make a good living. Like I wanted to earn a living and buy a house, and and be responsible in that respect. But I was like, but if I can get all those things and pay my bills and have a really great time with a bunch of friends doing it, yeah, that's what I want to do. Why would you choose anything else?
Yeah, 100%. I remember saying to myself, like, I wake up and say, I can't believe I get paid to do this. Now, I didn't get paid a lot, but my expenses weren't high. I didn't have a car payment. My apartment rent was stupid low. Like, if I told you what it was, I mean, I could tell you it was split 3 ways, but I spent I would pay $125 a month just for rent, and then we paid on top of that for that included heat.
Oh
yeah,
you're right.
And so it was silly. So I didn't need a lot to live. So I was like, well, you know what? I have enough money for my rent and some beer money, and I'm getting paid to party. So life is good.
Yeah, exactly. And you were encouraged to go out and be seen at places. And you were saying that before, even if it wasn't a promotion, you're like, well, but they're a good advertiser and I want to support them. So I'm going to go to their grand opening or their reopening because they had renovations or a charity event. And that's the thing too, is we partied hard and had a good time, but we had a lot of charitable events. I'm passionate about giving back, and I'm passionate about not just supporting charitable events, but we organize a lot of our own as well. So I think that was a cool element. We were giving back to the community. We had those promotions for the domestic violence service center, cystic fibrosis. And those are things I was passionate about, I was working on, but I was like, these are good things to get behind. And we all, joined in to support them.
Absolutely. And, Rachel Pugh, you no longer go by the name Rachel Pugh.
Yeah, I'm married. I'm still Pugh, but I add.
I know. So as for as long as I've known you, Rachel Pugh has not been the wisest woman when it comes.
I don't know what you mean.
When it comes to men, until recently, I think you got yourself a good one now.
Mickey and I were just talking about that. We went on a hike together. We were just talking about our similar journeys, and now we're both wonderful human beings and how lucky we are.
It took you a minute. It took you a hot minute, Rachel.
39. I told Damien he proposed, and then I was like, "Can we get married before I turn 40?"
Well, it's funny because I would witness a lot of these follies.
All of it. You were there for all of it, John. All of it. I think you were literally because when you started. Oh God, yes, all of it.
All of it. Rachel,
again, you're young. You're not thinking about forever. You're just thinking about.
Right. And that's kind of what I was getting at. You were young. You're naive.
Yeah. I mean, there was a few of them in between. We were like, oh yeah, okay, this is going to be forever. And you're like, oh, okay, this isn't. But, and again, like I met Damien at the right time. If I met Damien, like, again, we both were married before, you know that. And like, if I met Damien in my 20s, like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like we met when we were supposed to meet.
And a lot of these conversations that I do, whether it's the Weekender crew or just, you know, bands or business owners or whatever it might be, a lot of these things happen where, you know, things happen when they're supposed to happen.
Absolutely.
And I always say things happen for a reason. I try to live by that. Like, I think it was just with John Phillips. Mm-hmm. Everything happens for a reason. And maybe I would think differently if my life sucked.
Yeah. Well, right. Of course.
You know, like, oh, why did this happen to me? Or, right. But again, I mean, like things happen for a reason. If your life was in a bad place, like there's probably reasons behind why, whether it's upbringing or whatever it might be. I think at the end of the day, things happen for a reason, but like, it's cool. I think all of us at the Weekender, that I could think of off the top of my head that I've known and I've talked to, that I've been friends with, life has turned out pretty good.
Yeah, I feel everyone's in a good place. And again, I think sometimes you have to go through those hardships and those like really ugly times to get to that good place, because you don't know if you'd appreciate the good place you're in if you don't know what the bad places look like. So, I mean, I know, like Vicky and I were talking about that. And I was like, you know, some people are like 0 regrets. I'm like, I have a ton of regrets. There are chapters in my life I wish I could just like delete. And she's like, well, you can't say that, you had to learn. I'm like, I know, but like, I wish I was smart enough to not have to learn from that mistake, you know? But, you know, as I said, and she said it too. She's like, you're a different person now because based off mistakes you've made in the past.
Sure.
So you have to remember that. So, and she's right. She's absolutely right.
Yeah. Mine were always very kind of calculated, like my decisions. Like, I mean, I don't think I've made any mistakes in the sense that like, oh, I did this and this bad thing happened. Like,
yeah.
Maybe you dated the wrong person, but it was like, it ended, no big deal, whatever.
Yeah.
But you
sometimes though, it's like, I look back, I'm like, that was so stupid. Or like, why did I even put myself in that position? I'm like, and I feel like I got lucky that, right, nothing bad, terrible came out of it. But you're like, but you could see how something terrible could come out of that. But again, I'm the person I am now because of that. And that's why I don't judge other people, because like people screw up, people make mistakes. And like, I just happen to be fortunate that like, you know, I have a decent head on my shoulders and I had a good upbringing. I have a good support system. And it
was great outside of the men. It was one of those things. It's just constantly like she's such a smart person. What is going on over here?
I don't know. I don't know why that was the path that I took. But again, at the time, you don't know that, you know, you're like, everybody has good features and good, you know, like it's not like this is a nice person or I'm having fun.
Oh, sure. No,
I'm laughing a lot with this person. And then, things go south because you're like, all right, well, he's not the person I want him to be. And like, I'm probably not the person he wants me to be either. And it's like,
it's both ways. I'm not, you know, if any of those guys are watching this, I doubt they are. Maybe they are because they want to see if you're talking shit on them. It's not, it's never one-sided. I mean, there's two people. It takes 2 to 10.
Stupid stuff too in those relationships.
Yeah, no. We all do. It's like we all.
You witnessed it. I know you can tell some of those stories of stupid stuff.
Hell yeah. Talk about that after.
So it's like, again, you're young and dumb and learning, but like, at least we have those stories to like talk afterwards and laugh about. Like, oh God, remember that time? Or remember, you know what I mean? I said, I know people that they're like, no, I don't really have any, I don't have any stories to tell. And I'm like, I have nothing but stories to tell.
All my stories are drunk stories that I remember halfway, and then the second half is told to me by somebody else who wasn't drunk.
Yeah. But like, remember when we went like swimming in Genetti's? That was fun.
That was awesome.
That was fun. And that was good. I called Tom Greco and was like, can we go swimming in the Genetti's pool? And he was like, yeah. And a bunch of us got together and we went swimming.
Yeah. Josh was there. There was, I do remember, I will not say her name. There was someone there. I think there was like some words exchanged between, I feel like you and them.
Did I get in an argument with someone?
I don't even know if it was like, it was like with somebody else, but like you kind of got pulled into it. Like it was weird, but like,
you have to
awesome night. Yeah, awesome night nonetheless. That was like
what time of night? I don't even remember.
Oh, it was way late. But again, it was just like, yeah. And you kind of had to like know someone like to hang out in the pool at Janetti's. Like,
yeah, like Tom, we want to go swimming. There's a bunch of us.
Okay.
Like, yeah, go ahead. I like those are the kind of things that we did.
We weren't staying there. We weren't staying at the hotel.
We just went swimming until like whatever time at night.
I'll still drive past there sometimes and be like, and think of those nights and be like, oh, that could be a really cool spot for like intimate pool parties. Still.
I've said that they should do Cuban nights there.
Well,
and the reason I say that, like cool, like Cuban music, because they used to have that mojito bar. Do you remember?
Right. They were the best.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, it would be cool to do like a Cuba Libre type of thing and to play like they used to project those films on the side of the FM Kirby Center. You remember that?
Yep.
I'm like, wouldn't it be cool to like project like old Cuban films on it and stuff? Just like a whole summer vibe. Like that would be really fun.
I remember it being at one of the First Friday events because we did a lot of stuff there for First Friday with Tom. And I want to say that was one of my first encounters with Susan Kalu. She was there and I actually had gotten a mojito. And I felt real weird. I was like, shit, like, this is like kind of Rachel's boss, but not really. But she's like with the Times leader, and the Times leader was, hoity-toity. Like, we were always the redheaded stepchild. So like I had this drink. I'm like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't have this right now. But she was
cool. She's so cool. Yeah, she would like buy you a drink. And so I love when Susan left, I'll never forget the day she left. And I got a phone call that she was leaving. And I sobbed, and went out with her that night and sobbed that night. Like I loved her. Like I just, that's what I said. I was just super lucky. Like Kathy Pleshy too. Like these are great women. They really showed me the ropes and they showed me, it wasn't just like how to be a good leader and how they like gave me like talks just about like life in general or like the politics of an office that I didn't understand. Like, some people aren't going to like you because of this. And I was like, everyone should like me. I'm a nice person, but they would like, I don't know, they would just kind of like help me through those experiences because again, everything's personal when you're young.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like, a lot of men are intimidated by strong, independent, powerful women, right? I'm not. I find it to be a big turn on. My wife, for instance, I always say to her, like, I would love to see her like giving a presentation or whatever it might be in her job, because like, for me, that's like very sexy. So like, I always viewed Susan Kalu as like this, like very like, I don't use the word sexy because like,
sexy. She is sexy.
No, she is. But my wife is the sexiest. Like, I don't want to like,
okay. All right.
I don't want to use those words in comparison to the wife.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like you, Susan Kalu, even Kim, what was her maiden name?
She was Kim Dudek.
Was it Dudek?
Yeah, she was Dudek.
I think it's McNeil now.
Yep.
So, I'll tell you a little story about her, and if she sees this, I don't care. I thought that about her as well until I had an encounter with her.
I know, but.
No, I'm not talking shit. This is.
They're great ladies. They're great.
No. Again, I'll tell the story. This is how I feel.
Okay.
There was a time where I was a sales rep for the Weekender, and someone called in. I forget what the account was. They called in. They wanted information about what advertising, which I effectively gave over the phone. Yep. Basically made the sale over the phone. Like, yes, we want to do that. And I'm thinking to myself, that's an effective way to do business, right? This is an effective way to be a salesperson. You're precise. You tell the people what they want to hear, like not hear, but like they ask questions, you get the answers. This is what it costs. This is this, whatever. And I know the sales rep. I'm not going to say the name, but they had been talking previously.
Yeah.
And because they had been talking previously, that was automatically her account. There was no sale made. There was no nothing. So I've been the salesperson. I've been the manager. I've seen both sides of the coin. So this is why I feel very free to talk about this. I know how it works. So Kim said it was her deal. And I said, well, that's really not fair. I made the sale. Mm-hmm. She said that I couldn't do that over the phone. And I had said that, I used the word snake. So I said like, oh, so it's okay for her to just snake that account from under me or whatever it was. And Kim got really like defensive, like, whoa. You can't be saying that. You can't be calling people snakes and doing this. I'm like, well, first of all, I didn't call her a snake. I'm just saying like, it's an act of what happened. And that sales rep was there for less time than I was. She was not there for much longer after that moment, that incident. And I think she was let go or forced to move on because she was not an upstanding employee. So I get upset because I'm a lifer. I'm the intern turned sales guy turned ad director or whatever it was. I'm here for the long haul, dude. Like, I'm on your team. Like, I want to bring money into the company. Like, I'm a team player. Like, I want to. Right. In my mind, it's not just Weekender. It's like, because the Weekender was owned by Times Leader, so it's bringing in. That was my life with Tom Shamrock. I worked in radio and billboards. It was not as much as it was like segmented, like print and radio. And in my mind, it's like, I have a job to do. I go out, I make sales. It brings the money into the collective pot, right? So that moment happened with Kim, and I was very turned off on that moment. And I held that. I tend to hold grudges, if you didn't know.
I noticed about you.
And I ran into her and her new husband at a beer fest.
Yeah.
Beer fest. I had been drinking, and we ran into each other, and she's very nice to me, and whatever. And I decided that this was a good time to let her know my displeasure with how she handled that incident
from 100 years ago.
It was like 5 for the time, whatever.
Which is like,
but I felt like that was a time to let her know. Not the best time. Nothing that I said was anything that I wouldn't have said sober. As much like what I just told you.
Yeah.
And I think she actually because I was like, where is she now? How long does she stick around for? And she's like, yeah, you're right, whatever. And I had mentioned to her, I'm like, I thought you were this this figure and blah, blah. And her husband was like, well, she still is. Dude, absolutely. You're right. 100%. Yeah. Dude. And you know what? I'm so happy for both of you. I'm not the kind of guy, it was not my goal to belittle her or take anything away from her. So if she's watching this or listening to it, Kim, I respect you, and I apologize for how, what I said was presented to you. I still think what happened was, incorrect, how it was handled, but how I presented it was wrong also. But I have and I messaged her the next day on Facebook Messenger, and I said exactly that. I said, hey, sorry for my presentation of said event. While I agree, I know what I said, and I feel what I said was right. Not the time or place for that behavior. So I think she deleted me off Facebook after that.
See, okay, this is the thing. This is what I'm talking about. when you're management, like, and again, you're working so hard and you're trying to like represent your team and you're passionate about it. Like sometimes you make mistakes and sometimes you say something and maybe it's not the right thing to say, maybe that wasn't the right thing to say to you, in that way. Yeah. But I don't think, Kim, just knowing Kim, I don't think that she was like thinking like John Popko's a jerk, like that probably didn't even occur to her. It was just like that moment in time. So I think sometimes like, I mean, you definitely hold grudges, like more than I hold grudges, but like, I try to like look at I'm not saying that I love everybody. Like there are people that I don't like in my life, but I try to look at just like situations and be like, this was situational. And then this probably wasn't even personal. This was situational. So like, I feel like the only way to happiness is not to take everything so personally. So, because then you feel like everything's happening to you.
Right. No, and I would agree with that if the other part that I forgot to mention, she said something and I said something back and she said, "Oh, there you are. There's John Popko." Like kind of like saying that I had this anger problem. She's like, "Oh, there's the angry guy. We got him out. We got him in. Come on, everyone come look. Like we got him out." So it's like, yeah. But again, it was that time frame too was the time frame we mentioned where ad dollars were scarce and we were fighting for everything we had.
Yeah.
Again, I look back on this now and I laugh about it. It's something that happened. And I'm, I've been in management. So it's like when I look at these things, I say, you have to look at the big picture too. It's like, yeah, I understand fighting for your team, but we're on the same team essentially. And B, you have to really look at all the facets. Like, okay, this guy's been here this long. He like eats, sleeps, breathes this product. Like, and you have this fly by night person, and we're gonna back them over the guy who's been there like time and time again.
What that person said to Kim too. You know what I mean? And I'm not defending. I don't.
No, I'm not asking you to.
Yeah, I wasn't there, but people also make mistakes. People say dumb things and I'm not saying Kim made a mistake. Maybe she's just like, no, I meant it. I think John Popko a jerk. I don't know.
My life did not.
But I just, as I said, like I agree with you. Like I lead with empathy, so I'm always trying to like look at all angles. But things are situational, and sometimes, just as I told you before, I look back and I'm like, nah, I would have done that differently. So I think we've all had those moments.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely. And I'm not saying that I don't want anyone to think that I'm sitting here thinking I'm a perfect leader or manager or employee or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because my early years of the Weekender were questionable.
Well, yeah. And like, I've been in situations like where people get heated and people have yelled at me and like said things, not even managers, just other, and I'm not even saying the Weekender, just in any job. And I'm like, okay, this is crazy. This isn't how I would do this. But afterwards, like, I'm like, you know what? They were emotional about it, whatever. And I don't try to make excuses for them, but like, I just don't let it own any part of my life. Right. And I'm just kind of like, well, they flipped out. They flip out easily. I don't. That sucks. I'm glad I don't flip out so easily. People, it must be frustrating when you just go from 0 to 10 so quickly. I'm like, that kind of stinks. And then I move on with my day. But
yeah,
I don't know.
That happened to me in the job I had before this. Somebody just a lot. Things happen out of frustration, whether it's with the job, with people, with the life in general. Like, it could be home, it could be friends, it could be whatever. And they just like lost their shit, like, and said some things about me and my character that like are untrue. And he walked away, and I said to my GM, it happened in front of my GM, and I said, you know what? Just what we said here. Like, I'm like, things happen. I said, but you know what? Like I said, I'm not going to go talk to HR or anything like that, but like that kind of behavior, so it can't happen. Like it was like nuts. Like, and I was like, dude, I'm the last guy to like be like, oh yeah, go tell on somebody. Like, could have had a bad day, right?
Right.
But I said that behavior can't ever happen again, because at that point it's not okay. Yeah. And like, we're friends now. Like it's weird. It's funny how that happens. But
yeah, people sometimes just lose it. But like, Again, I try to always be like, okay, maybe they just handle stress way differently than I handle stress. And especially with work, like I love what I do. Banco's a great company, and and I feel lucky to be there. But like, I will not let myself get like hysterical about things or mad. Like, it's just there's so many things in life to get hysterical about. There's so many bad things going on in the world that you have no control over, that you could get really stressed out about. Like, somebody not, I don't know, creating the digital ad that you want to create at the time you want. Like, there's just always a solution. There's always a way to work around that. So like, I'm just not, and maybe that's to a fault. Like, I've been told, not a Banco, but just, I remember at the paper too, like, you need to be like more fired up. Like, you need to be more hot headed. I'm like, I'm just not, I'm a pretty like, I don't know, calm person. Like, I don't get like hysterical really easily. So not about work, because I feel like everybody's intentions are good. I feel like everybody's just trying to like make a living and do the right thing. And yeah, do people act incorrectly and do people lose their crap and throw other people under the bus? But why should I get hysterical over that? Like, they operate that way, and it's looked at as being unfavorable. Why do I want to be unfavorable too? It's just not, I don't know. I just think it's very unnecessary in the workplace.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, there's, as I said, I watch a lot of documentaries. There are things I am screaming at the television about or crying afterwards because I'm like, I can't believe the world is so messed up. Or like, that's the stuff that we're like, all right, what do I need to do about it? And you can act upon it. But like, things that happen at work, like, not that you're not passionate about it, you don't get animated, or, you might get upset about things, but to like lose your cool at work is not okay in my book. It's just never is.
You watch a lot of documentaries. Are you familiar? I'm sure you are, but phthalates?
What it is?
Phthalates, like in plastics and our food and all that kind of stuff.
Oh God! I don't want
to get into it, but like, I listened to a podcast the other day, and then like people were at work the day prior to that podcast release. We're talking about plastics and like tires and the like dust from tires, and like it's in our bodies and all this kind of shit. And I'm like, this is like, the world's crazy.
What? Go watch the documentary Seaspiracy.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. I haven't seen it. I saw it available.
Oh, watch it, because it starts off talking about like just like plastics, and you're like, all right, this is terrible, but I know that straws are bad and blah blah blah. But then it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper about the entire ecosystem and like how we're destroying it. So, and then there was a scene. Like, Damien was doing something on his phone. He wasn't even paying attention. I'm watching it, and I am like ugly crying, like hysterically crying, because there's this whole thing with whales. And Damien's like, why do you do this to yourself? Why are you watching? I'm like, because I need to know. I'm like, it's important to know that these things are going on in the world. And I'm like, and I try to adjust my lifestyle based off it. Like, I haven't even fished since that documentary. Like, I'm a vegetarian, but I used to at least eat salmon once in a while. No, won't touch any of it.
Yeah, it's it's scary because it can't just change overnight, and it's going to take drastic changes, and it won't change because there's too much money involved.
There's too much money, and there's too many people who are like, well, this is for me for right now. And so if you always have that philosophy, it's like people who litter. Well, I don't need this anymore, and I don't give a crap what happens to it. I'm going to throw it out my window. Like, that type of mental, like people who don't take their shopping carts back, or they just throw it in the parking lot. Like, that type of mentality is what sets the world on fire. It's like, well, this is what's good for me, and that's all that matters. Like, there's how many millions of people living on this earth? Like, it's just not about you. So I don't know. And I'm not saying I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have any plastic in my house. Like, I do my very best.
Yeah, but it's almost impossible.
And that's the problem, is that plastic. Again, like, when plastic was like Tupperware and all that stuff, it was, created to last forever, which was the greatest thing because it will last forever. You know what's terrible about it? It lasts forever.
Right.
It just, you can't break the stuff down.
But they were saying even like the coatings on like jackets that make them like rain repellent or whatever, that shit. Like, I've been wearing. Remember when these were cool, and Livestrong and Lance Armstrong had these bracelets? Like, so I've been wearing this bracelet. This is in honor of my buddy Chris Abbott's father, who's like a second father to me. Mm-hmm. I have been wearing this in remembrance and in honor of him since 2000. He died in 2004. I feel like I got it shortly after he passed away, or a year later in 2005. Either way, that's a long time.
Yeah.
He died of ALS. And it says never give up. So this band used to be the red of this microphone. This microphone right here.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, so this is like rubber, like how much?
Yeah.
This is one day probably going to just become part of my skin at this point. But it's just crazy. It's all over the place. Yeah, sure. You can't avoid it.
There's stuff they spray on your furniture. You know what I mean? So it's like more stain resistant, whatever. Like it's bad for you. But it's beyond that. Like even like I had a friend I was talking about like changing all my products and making sure and he's like, okay, yeah, but like, do you have a filtration system for all of your water? And at the time I was like on city water. He's like, it's just everything. It's the air you breathe. It's everywhere. So to me, I get like, that's the stuff that I get very overwhelmed because I'm like, I don't know what to do to change it. So I just try to make little lifestyle changes for myself. And I don't preach about it to everyone else. And I just do my own, I'm like, if I can make a little bit of a difference or leave a little bit less of a footprint, then that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's like, it's stuff like you can like consciously make efforts to like, okay, well, I'm going to buy, hair products that don't have XYZ in it, or I'm going to have like, but they're in plastic bottles and like,
I know.
It's plastic everywhere and we can't get away from it.
Yeah. And then on top of it, a lot of the ingredients in the products or like how they're made, because I'm trying to buy products that aren't tested on animals. Cause I'm like, and that's been around forever. Right. But I'm like, why are we still shoving shampoo in bunnies' eyes? Like, why is that still a way to test if shampoo causes your eyes to water? Like, you know what I mean? And like, there's a lot of companies getting away from it, but there are still a lot of companies who don't. So it's terrifying to me.
Yeah.
And archaic.
Well, the thing I was listening to was just like, if a baby is born prematurely and they have all these tubes that are going into them to help keep them alive, those are all plastic tubes. So the phthalates get into their bodies that way. So they start life. With those, it's just crazy.
What do you do? Yeah. And it's overwhelming. But like, somebody once told me, because these are the things that keep me up at night and give me anxiety, and I have nightmares every night. They're like, you need to realize that like your shoulders aren't that broad. Like you can't carry all of the world's problems on your shoulder. Pick some things and make little lifestyle changes, and that's what you can do. But like you can't take it all on.
Yeah. Well, Rachel, we kind of got scary there. So before we leave, it's getting late, and I want to keep it too late. Favorite weekender moment?
Oh,
come on! You had to know I was going to ask that.
I didn't prepare that.
Jesus, what did you prepare?
Nothing. I
didn't ask.
You. Okay. Did you really think I'm the type of person to like write a bunch of notes?
Christy Greer Cerruti had a whole PowerPoint.
Exactly, because that is Christy. I remember she talked to me about stuff that she was going to address. But favorite weekender moment. I have a lot of favorite weekender moments. I do love the times, and I know everyone's like, Reader's Choice, but like I loved like going to my place and like opening a bottle of wine and like counting ballots and stuff. I thought that was really fun. I really, really liked bands, like original bands, CD release parties. And I'll tell you why, because it wasn't just about the party, which was always fun, but like the bands worked really, really hard on those CDs, and they were writing original music and they were proud of it. And for us to like get behind it and support it in a big way, like those were fun events. Those were special events. I thought, sure. I really, really love them because I was proud of the local music in our area. And I liked supporting it and being a part of that. So those are some good moments. Model of the Year parties, I would like to say were my favorite moments, but somehow they always ended not. They always started off with really good intentions, like blowing up balloons. And like, I loved going to the wood. That was fun. Cause like, I'm an excitable person. Like I get like giddy excited. Like I'll feel drunk just from being like excited without even drinking. And I get that from my mother, but I loved going to the woodlands in the middle of the day. And like, were you with me when we were like, this was before we got like tanks to, the smart thing to do is like buy a tank or use the Woodlands tank and blow up the balloons there. But there were times where we would go and pick up the balloons and
Party City
popping. Yeah. And they'd be popping in the car and stuff. But it was just that, like, just that whole day was fun. The anticipation of it was a lot of fun. And again, something always crazy happened at the event, or it always ended like not the way you wanted it to end.
Someone got drunk and
something stupid happened. Yeah. But like, I like the anticipation of that. I always thought that was really fun. And again, the Genetti's pool, I brought it up for a reason. That was a great night. That was fun. Although I don't remember getting into an argument with someone, so you can refresh me later. But
yeah, I mean, it didn't escalate too much, but it was definitely.
I don't remember it.
Yeah.
Wow. Maybe because I don't hold grudges.
You say hold grudges. I just don't forget. I just don't forget.
That's
like
called a grudge.
Oh.
Yeah. You can interchange those two.
Shit, I have so many grudges. I have my memory. I have such a good memory.
But I also have like the in-office stuff, like the blue football thing. Like people are going to be like, God, why do they keep talking about this damn plastic football? But it was a funny, again, because there was, those are things you couldn't do now. And I also liked the phone incident and God, I just dumb stuff. I remember like being in my office and like it's so inappropriate. But I remember Steve Houston could make it like he could extend his stomach really far. And you remember him doing that? Yeah. So I'd be like, Steve, extend your stomach. He would come to my office and he would stand at the doorway. I couldn't even see him and he would like, but I could just see his stomach. And like, that was funny. So it's those little things that, or like Janelle with the house fires instead of home fries.
Oh, Janelle.
All the mistakes that like, and it was no one's fault. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it's somebody's fault, but like you're working them. I mean, God, you're burning the midnight oil and you're working hard and stuff. So there'd be these little typos, but then at the time we're like, oh my God, this is crazy. But it was hilarious. Like that guy called Janelle and was like, should I call like the fire marshals to my business? She's like, what are you talking about? Said like home of the best home, or it was best home fires or something.
Yeah.
Land of the best home fires. I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah. It'd be one thing if it was just like this weird, like if you had a typo that didn't make any sense, but like Janelle had like the best home fires, like
surprise. He just started serving breakfast there.
Well, there's that, but like, the most devastating thing for anybody in their life is a fucking house fire. And this asshole, because of Janelle, is promoting that he has the best house fires. Like only Janelle. Like that's the thing. Like again, it's not like they spelled the word brewery wrong. Like that doesn't matter. No one cares, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, it was best home fires, and there was another thing with her too. I forget what it was, but yeah.
But like that guy was a good sport, Jay. It was Jay Callett. Like he was funny about it and stuff. Like other people would call and be like really upset if there was a mistake, and then we're like, all right, we'll double the size of your ad next week.
Yeah.
But those small office moments were really great moments. I'd like to say parade days, but no, parade days weren't. Those were brutal.
They were long and they always ended very poorly.
Yep.
Except was it 2000? It was 2006. I think Tiffany brought it up where we double booked parade day in I think Scranton, and then we had a
promotion at the
karaoke night at I think it wasn't River Grill at the time, but it was the waterfront. Remember that?
God, yes.
It was me, you, TJ. I think Mike G was probably obviously there.
TJ knocked me off a stool.
Huh?
TJ knocked me off a stool.
Right. TJ knocked you off a stool. I almost got a fight with a guy because I was dancing with this girl.
Someone threw ice.
He was throwing ice at me. Fucking guy was throwing ice at me. I'm like,
yeah, because you had your weekender t-shirt.
I'm having a good time. Like this girl, like I was minding my own business, like hanging out. This girl came over and she started dancing around. I'm like, whatever. I'm not like, I'm just having a good time. I don't know if she's your girl, dude. Like if she is, like, I mean, stop throwing ice. Like, talk to her.
There are a couple of times I remember you on stage, just owning the mic, having any conversation you wanted to have. And I would just walk up the stage and just grab you off the stage.
Yeah, they were probably fireable moments. Thank you for not doing that.
Crazy stuff on the mic, and I'm like,
this guy's got potential. Just get him off the mic. He's got potential. This guy's.
I remember I would be like doing my thing, whatever, socializing, talking to people, shaking hands, and I could hear you on the mic. I'd be like, damn it, hang on. So I would walk up and I would just grab you off. I'm like, you're done. Get off.
My personal cane for the stage.
A number of times.
Again, fireable moments in a normal life. So thank you again for not doing that. I remember there was the time at Tinks, and there's a picture. I don't know if it's available. It's probably online somewhere, but there was a picture of me looking at Tim Farley from Panacea.
Yeah, Tim.
But I think I was saying something half inappropriate, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, "Yeah, I said it."
Those were fun days too. Any time with Panacea and Polly, any time with Polly was a good time. So the Tiffany, I don't think she talked about it in her interview with the mini motorcycles.
No.
She didn't talk about. Remember, it was the Voodoo Lounge, and then it became Club. It was numbers.
66.
The Partashes owned it.
Not the Partashes. It was Club or Exit. No.
Partashes owned it for a bit.
Club 77 or something. Yeah, Club something.
Something like that. So again, any promotion with the Partashes were fun too. I like those guys. They were fun. But we had some type of event there, and Tiffany was there, and I don't know who the hell showed up with these mini motorcycles. And Tiffany's like, I'm doing it. I'm riding the motorcycle. I'm like, you're not riding. You can't ride motorcycles inside of a nightclub. You're not doing that. And I remember talking to Joe's student.
You can't do this.
Yeah. And I was like, Tiffany's just let it go. You're not doing it. So I'm having a conversation. And I remember I turned and I saw her on the back of a mini motorcycle, just her hair flowing in the wind going by. And I was like, we are getting in trouble for this. This is not okay. Oh my God.
That's amazing.
I don't think she knew either. I don't know who had the bikes. I don't know why there were mini motorcycles in this club, but she found her way to the back of it.
That's amazing.
Flew past me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Oh man.
Yeah. And I don't know why we were even there. I don't remember what was going on, but
there's too many stories to tell. There's a guy that I still see to this day. He sold me, I think, 2 cars. He sold my wife a car years ago. That, and I saw him last week, and this is probably going back to 2005 or 2006. And I was with Tiffany. I was with that group. And as innocent as they seemed, I got in a lot of trouble with them.
Yeah.
They would take me to places that I didn't even hear. I never heard about. Let's go to Exit 6. Let's go to this guy's party.
Exit 6.
So we were at this guy's house. I had just met him. Now, from the story he tells me is very out of character from what he says for me. Then again, I was not sober. So I guess that kind of all goes out the window. But even drunk John, I'm like, that doesn't sound like something I would do. I know me drunk and I know me sober. But so I saw him and he was mad at me for years. And he finally told me, I'm like, dude, what's the deal? And he's like, well, you were at my party once. And I don't know if he said I guess he said I was spitting on his floor.
Yeah, no, that doesn't sound like you.
Right?
No, that doesn't.
It doesn't.
Thank you. No.
I did some silly shit when I was drunk.
Yeah, but you're not
straight disrespectful.
No.
But I mean, I said sorry multiple times over and over. I'm like, dude, it doesn't sound like something I would do, but I'm really sorry. I feel terrible. That I would ever do that to someone I just met.
Doing that.
I know. It's just weird. But Again, I just saw him last week. It's just funny how like these relationships that I, started in 2005 have carried on 16 years later.
You know what? Event I like too, even though it got crazy, but like it's cool to say that we went to CBGB's. Like that was cool. That promo was awesome. Where people were winning seats on the bus and everything, and it shut down after that.
Mm-hmm.
Spitcan played it. So that's, I think, again, those experiences where it's like, oh wow, like I did that. I was part of that, and at the time you didn't think it was that big of a deal, but looking back, I'm like, it was cool to say that I was at CBGB's. Like I watched documentaries about the place. I'm like, oh, I was there.
I would have been there if it wasn't for that trip.
Yeah, me neither. So
yeah.
I know you mentioned some of them on some of your interviews, but like, what are some highlights?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely those trips. I mean, the one Panacea trip was off the charts. I can't even tell it on air. But it just, and I wish there was a way to capture all those moments on video and put them into like a montage.
Yeah.
Like sets of music, because like no one like, if anyone's even listening this far into this, like no one gives a shit. Like we do. We were there. We were part of it. Like, if Paulie hears it, he'll be like, he'll like, smile about it. And, but I mean, there was moments like, when Panacea spray painted, on the cover of the Weekender, because they were mad at, but we had such like, and like people would, if their ad was wrong or like there was a misspelling, like you mentioned before, like people would lose their fucking minds. Yep. And it's because it was such a powerful product. Like it was so influential.
And at the time you were like, oh, you were so mad about it. But now you're like, it meant something to people.
Yeah. I will never forget though. And I don't know who started it. And I think I might know, but they had the website, and I'm glad it's being brought up now with you. It was called theweekender.com.
Oh, W-E-A-K.
Yeah. Instead of the Weekender, W-E-E-K, it was W-E-A-k.
Oh, I have really bad stories from that. Yeah.
What this person would do, and I think I know who it was, and you might know for sure, but and that person may have actually reached out to me like 2 weeks ago, like unknowing it was me they were talking to. But they would try and like go page by page through the Weekender and just find any error they could.
Yep.
Or nitpick anything they could. I remember me personally, like there was an ad that I had, I think it was for a music store, and it was for a set of drums. And the drums, the brand was, I think it was Drum, but it was spelled D-D-R-U-M.
Yeah.
That was the name of the brand.
Yep.
So this motherfucker, I was like, oh, whoever, proofs the ad for this account, they can't even spell drum right. And I'm like, you fucking idiot. You don't even know what the hell you're talking about. That's a goddamn name of a brand. Who the fuck do you think you are?
I remember this.
But it was like, it would rile every single one. Like, I don't know why we let it get to us. Because like, I know why. Because we were so proud of what we did and the time that we put into it. And there's this jerk off who's like, just like being a jerk off and going through it and just kind of like trying to nitpick stuff.
Well, right. And you're like, who the hell has the time to take in a popular, widely read publication and go through and point out everything that's wrong about it? If anything, all you're doing is driving more traffic to our publication. But like, I went to Rich Connor about that because they came up with that. But that guy took very personal digs about me. Mm-hmm. And the guy I was dating at the time, he started writing about him. And I was like, this is like harassment. Like, this was crazy. And then they started that blog. There was that whole NEPA blog, and they were bashing people in the media. And I remember talking to Rich about it. And Rich is like, you have to expect, he's like, listen, I've stopped paying attention to what people write about me. And he's like, if you are putting yourself out there and you're like creating a recognizable name and like people know who you are, you have to expect people to bash you. You're going to have some people that they just want to see you fall. So he's like, you need to accept that. And I was like, all right. And it was hard to do. It was really hard to do because it was like personal. It was really personal. But that guy came to an event. I think it was for Women Who Rock. Women Who Rock was cool too. I like those events for domestic violence, like to raise money and awareness for that. Those bands were amazing. But I think he was at one of those events or something, and my father was there. And I remember I was like, that's the guy. I was like saying something. My dad went up and said something to him. I was like a grown woman at that point. And he went and he said something. I don't even know what he said, but I remember watching him go over and say something to the table. I'm like, I don't remember anything being written about me after that. I don't know. But I mean, that guy was starting to hit below the belt though. Like he was starting to like play dirty. He was saying some like gross things about me in that publication.
Yeah.
So, and like at the time I had met him before I knew he was the one doing that. And so then he used that against me too. Like what an idiot I am. Like I was being nice I said hi to him and I was being nice and stuff. He was in a band and I was like, I didn't know. And he thought that was hilarious that like I was being polite, and little did he know he was the one bashing me. I'm like, oh, you win.
Shucks.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm glad to see that you're doing this. I know everybody has said that. I'm glad to see you're happy. You know, I love Amanda and Lincoln. I'd like to meet. I'm like, I only see him through pictures, but your beautiful son. And
yeah, he's awesome.
So it's just, you're right. It's nice to see, like in all the interviews I saw you conduct, everyone seems like they're in a really good place. It makes me happy.
Yeah. This is fun.
Yeah, this was fun.
Well, I know there's things we can't talk about, stories that must go to the casket.
Yep. I thought there's just so many times I was like, oh, that story's crazy. I'm like, you know, like I'm friends with my pastor on Facebook. like maybe, no, you know, not that. And again, it's not like we did anything that was like jail worthy. It's nothing like that, but it's just like sometimes the youth, you know, things you've done in your youth needs to just
stay there. Yeah. It's stuff that was cool back then. It's like, and I mean, there's many stories of things that I'll tell in private, but I would never want it recorded.
No, none of us did.
And they're proud moments too. There's stuff that I'm like, I did that. It was awesome. I was young. I was stupid. It was an idiot.
Yep, me too. I didn't hurt anybody. It was nothing like that. It was just like dumb where I was like, I don't want people to think I was a train wreck or anything. But it was, again, we grew up there. So those stories I'm glad we have them.
I am too. And hopefully they can be captured in this podcast and forever be remembered when people want to revisit them. But
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for always, being a great boss and a mentor and a leader. And Mooch, you better get over here. This is the only podcast that you'd probably be welcome on. Come on. You're ruining my praise for Rachel. Here. Only a cat could ruin the praise for Rachel. She'd be okay with that. But no, I mean, seriously, I mean, there was times that you probably could have fired me. I'm glad you didn't. I mean, a normal job, I probably would have been fired.
Yeah, well, different times. And it was a different company, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was one of the luxuries, I think, of working for an alternative publication.
But, I mean, everyone that worked for you loved you. And
thanks.
I think I was able to, like, bridge some gaps with some people through these conversations with, past employees.
Yeah.
Which has been good.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. As I said, I genuinely care about every single associate who worked at the Weekender. Like I really did. Like I don't say that lightly. And for me, like just watching your podcast and seeing where everyone is, I was like, God, I'm just so glad everyone's in a really good place. Everyone looks happy. They look great. They're doing well. And, and even like people who before you, worked there, like everyone I talked to, like my friend Shelby, she's living out in Colorado and doing great. And it's just, I don't know. And they all have these similar crazy stories of growing up at the Weekender where they're like, wow, I can't believe I got paid to do that. I can't believe like I did a lot of stupid stuff and here I am now. But I don't know, maybe we all became better people because of it.
I think so. And I extended the offer to her. I hope she does this because I don't even know her other than her name.
Awesome. She's awesome.
I think we were somewhere. I can't remember if it was Wilkes-Barre or if it was somewhere else, but she was just there because she was home with you.
Yeah.
But her and Megan Rollins,
Yeah.
Who else? There's just people that I didn't have the pleasure to work with directly.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I do this. I keep saying it's a selfish reason. I want to do it because I want to learn more about people and what they thought about things and where they are today. If people listen, that's awesome too. But
bring Shelby on. She's also not allowed to tell. She's not allowed to tell a lot of stories because she was my like other half at the weekend, and those were crazy times. It was like Vicky, me, Shelby, So
Joe Student.
Yeah, those are fun days.
But
cool.
Well, hey, it looks like you are in better shape than me as far as I'm very tired. I need to go.
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
Almost.
God damn.
Well, this is fun. Thanks for inviting me, John. I appreciate it.
Well, go cuddle your cats.
I am.
Tell Damien I said hello. Have I met him?
I don't know. Did you ever go call on his store or anything?
No.
He was an advertiser.
Well, real quick, you and I went to call on him when he first opened on Pierce Street.
You said that. I don't remember going there.
Yes. He opened on Pierce Street. I don't remember what year it was. It had to have been, I want to say 2008, maybe 7. It was early in my sales career.
Yeah.
But that cheap son of a bitch would not buy an ad.
I don't remember. You know what's funny is that like I don't remember that. He doesn't remember that either. I
do.
He worked at Club Access. Aaron, and Damien would like switch off and on, like checking IDs and stuff at Club Access. We were there all the time. I was there all the time. Never met him. And then I called on him when I was at Refer Local, and he still has like voice recordings of me like, "Hi, my name is Rachel Pugh. I'm wondering if we can get together and discuss blah, blah, blah and stuff." But I was like, oh, we never met. I don't remember that, Pierce Street.
Damien, that's kind of creepy. You still have voice recordings of her before you knew her as your wife?
Not on purpose. It's just that he had like that Google phone or Google. I don't know what it was. It's so like, weird.
Rachel Pugh's calling. Better record these. Better save these. It's my future wife. She doesn't know it yet. Damien, I'm kidding. I don't know you, but you seem to treat Rachel right, so.
Damien, I'm lucky to have him. Like
good. Yeah. It's about time.
Yeah, he balances me. Like we're very opposite, but it's such a good balance. Good. And I feel very fortunate.
Cool. Well, hopefully I always say this. I say this. I feel like this is like my send off. I say, hopefully I will see you sooner than later.
Yes, I know. Well, hopefully we can do like a weekend reunion out somewhere.
Yeah. People keep saying that. Like I was originally going to do it online, but like, hell with that. We need to go Hops or River Grill or somewhere cool. It'd be better than my high school reunion for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. So Rachel, thank you again.
You're welcome. Thanks for
having me. And I will see you soon.
Okay. Have a good night.
Awesome. We'll see you.
Bye.